Chapter 10:17. Ling Xiao turned his head and saw Xianyuan Weiyang take out a piece of ancient jade from her interspatial ring. His eyes narrowed. At this moment, he could feel an extremely gentle and surging spiritual energy flowing in the jade. It was obvious that this was a treasure. This is... Yi Qingchan also looked surprised, but Xianyuan Weiyang lowered her head and said softly, "This is the most precious treasure of the Xianyuan clan. It's called the mysterious heavenly jade. It contains a wisp of our ancestors' aura. It can drive away ghosts and evils and avoid disasters." The human sovereign's aura? Ling Xiao and Yi Qingchan looked at each other, and the smile on their faces became even gentler. That's right. How could a daughter of the human sovereign, who had never come out to experience the world, not have some life-saving means? However, Xianyuan Weiyang was really naive. She dared to give away such a divine item so casually. "Sister Weiyang, sister, just take it. My bloodline is special. Ordinary ghosts and evils can't get close to me at all." Xianyuan Weiyang smiled, and Yi Qingchan finally took the divine jade with Ling Xiao's nod of approval. Damn it, what kind of supreme secret realm is this? This is an evil demon's graveyard. Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the void in the distance. Neo and Ma descended from the sky and looked at the world in front of them in shock. Ling Xiao could clearly feel a wind-like aura from these two people. Obviously, these two people were playing the role of the villain's stepping stones. They were mostly used to humiliate the destined one. This place, what a terrifying corpse aura. No wonder that demon appeared here. I heard that when he first appeared, it was to snatch the corpse of the ancestor of the Foliaceae. Maybe this demon has a way to use the corpse to cultivate. It's too terrifying. Fortunately, I was prepared. Buzz. At the entrance, figures could be seen moving about. Spiritual radiance bloomed, isolating the endless deathly aura. Li Zichu, Lin Yuan, Gu Yu, and the others arrived one after another. Their faces flickered with shock. With such a corpse aura, I'm afraid there must be an extremely shocking secret hidden in the depths of this secret realm. The path to immortality was vast, and there were a few truths that would never change. Fortune always coexists with risk. At this moment, no one had the slightest intention of retreating. Instead, there was a faint sense of anticipation on their faces. "Everyone, I'll take my leave first." Lin Yuan bowed towards Ling Xiao from afar. He took a step forward and instantly headed towards the depths of the secret realm. Behind him, there were several ancient clan geniuses with strong auras following behind him. Clearly, they had already submitted to Lin Yuan. "Junior sister Li, why don't we go together?" Gu Yu smiled faintly, while Li Zichu shook her head slightly. She turned to look at Ling Xiao. However, when she saw Yi Qingchan and Xianyuan Weiyang standing beside him, she seemed to hesitate for a moment. In the end, she lifted her foot and left. "Let's go too." Ling Xiao's eyes were clear as he looked towards the distant sky of the secret realm. At this moment, he could feel that the two merged reincarnation marks were emitting an extremely terrifying heat. It was obvious that Gu Chaoxiai's guess was right. There must be some supreme treasure in this secret realm that was related to this mark. Buzz! The three of them took a step forward. Their bodies flashed, and in the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the distance. However, just as the three of them were about 100 miles away from the entrance, Ling Xiao's figure suddenly stopped. Then, with a single thought, the realm gate suddenly opened. Bai Ling and layered shadow immediately appeared in the void above. Xianyuan Weiyang's pretty face froze. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Why were all the women by his cousin's side so otherworldly? Bai Ling, follow that first disciple of the Confucian Institute. Inform me of her whereabouts at all times. Ling Xiao's eyes were deep as he spoke in a calm tone. "Yes, big brother." Bai Ling didn't even ask any more questions. She looked up at the graceful figure in the sky and suddenly disappeared on the spot. Now that Li Zichu was grateful to him, the young master of the Ling people, he was afraid that she would completely let down her guard after another unexpected encounter. Miss Lee, I could tell that you are a good person with good karma. Heaven helps the good. Layered shadow. Follow that ox and horse and see who they will encounter. Also, send out all the secret guards and pay attention to all movements, especially that holy girl of the Harmony sect. Yes, only when the two figures were far away did Ling Zhao's face flash with a hint of coldness. According to his speculation, since this supreme secret realm had something to do with the mark of reincarnation, it definitely wouldn't open for no reason. In other words, there must be another son of destiny hidden in this secret realm. From the way the Wolf King acted that day, Ling Xiao guessed that this person was most likely not the son of destiny. Then, the son of destiny with the mark of reincarnation might be hidden somewhere in this secret realm. It was not easy to find the son of destiny. After all, he was protected by Providence. But the villain was very obvious. The ox and horse were arrogant and domineering. They loved to show off. As long as he followed them, there was a high chance that he would encounter the son of destiny who would slap them in the face. The ox and horse were not afraid of being beaten. Thus, Ling Xiao only needed to go into the depths of the secret realm and find the Wolf King to see what secrets he was hiding. This trip to the secret realm would be perfect. Oh man, you and Long Xiao guard the entrance. Without my orders, no one is allowed to leave. In the end, Ling Xiao summoned Brute Devil and Long Xiao and ordered them to guard the entrance. In this way, even if the son of destiny was good at hiding, he would not be able to escape from Ling Xiao. Yes, Master. Young Master, where are we going now? Yi Qingchan's expression was calm. She naturally had complete trust in Ling Xiao's schemes. Not to mention a few geniuses of the same generation. Even the experts of the older generation in the Azure world might not be a match for young Master. Everything he did must have a deep meaning behind it. And what Yi Qingchan wanted to do was to stay by his side and accompany him on this journey to become an immortal until he stood at the top of the world. Generally speaking, the opportunities will be in the depths of the secret realm. Let's go there directly. Ling Xiao raised his eyes and looked at the barren mountain hidden under the clouds of corpse chi in the deepest part of the secret realm. There, he could vaguely feel a trace of an extremely weak aura. That aura did not seem to be the aura of reincarnation, but contained Tao. Okay, the three of them floated in the air and did not waste any time outside the secret realm. They headed straight for the barren mountain. When there was no one left at the entrance of the secret realm, a graceful figure in a golden feather robe walked out of the ancient forest in the distance. At this moment, she lifted her hand and took off the human skin mask on her face, revealing a gorgeous face. Especially that pair of bright golden eyes. There seemed to be flames dancing in them. They were enchanting, charming, and intimidating. Her skin was sparkling and translucent, like the best immortal jade. However, there was a hint of wildness between her brows. The Wolf King, the young master of the Ling people, Li Zhichu of the Daotian Academy, Gu Chao Ci. These top geniuses of the Azure world are all here. It seems that the item is most likely in the secret realm. The young girl sighed. Even though she had no chance of winning against these people with her capabilities, these people all had powerful backgrounds. However, which one of these people wasn't famous and had a strong background? If there wasn't anything in this secret realm that could attract them, why would they come to this wasteland? Thinking about this, the young girl no longer hesitated. She stepped out, and her feather robe fluttered. Like a divine phoenix, she flew away. Chapter 10:18. Buzz. A buzzing sound came from the entrance of the secret realm again. A white-robed figure stepped out and landed in front of the forest. There was not a trace of surprise or panic on his face. Instead, there was a hint of excitement. Behind him, two other white-robed young men walked into the secret realm unhurriedly. Their expressions were worse than if they had eaten **T with the foundation of the Nihility Dao sect, not to mention the Taigu Ling people. Even the Daotian Academy and the Longevity Lin family were far inferior. Although Yang Yuan had shown his talent, but, Brother Yang, if you want to die, you don't have to drag us down with you, right? I don't know what Master is thinking. He actually asked us to die with him. Senior brother Yang Yuan, strengthen our Dao sect? I see that you guys are quite happy. Why didn't you guys accompany him to the secret realm? F***CK. Senior brother Yang, look at how evil this secret realm is. Why don't we take a stroll in the outer area? Yes. Junior brother Yang, your cultivation is strong. We can't compare to you. Why don't you? Senior brothers, do as you please. Yang Yuan turned around and looked at the two of them calmly. Then he walked toward the mountain in the distance. Originally, he was thinking about how to get rid of these two burdens and find the Supreme Being's inheritance alone. He did not expect these two to be so cowardly. They had just entered the secret realm and were already thinking of escaping. Along the way, Yang Yuan had been exploring the path in front of him. These two senior brothers followed far behind, afraid that they would encounter danger and turn around to escape. Therefore, even if they followed him, they could not count on him if he encountered real danger. At this moment, he could feel that there was a fluctuation in the stone seal. Obviously, this was the place where the senior who left the seal had died. This. Junior brother, thank you for not killing us. Ha. Senior brother, then what are you waiting for? Is this the secret realm of the immortals something we can covet? Let's go. Let's wait for him outside the secret realm. If he can come back alive. The two looked at each other and smiled. Then, they turned around and walked toward the entrance. A ripple suddenly appeared in the void, and then a graceful figure appeared. She took a deep look at the two of them, and then she chased after Yang Yuan. Only when her figure vanished did Brute Devil and Long Shao walk out from behind an ancient tree, and their expressions were icy cold as they looked at the two disciples of the Nothingness Dao sect. I didn't expect your spiritual perception to be so sharp, even though your spiritual intelligence is not high. Brute Devil rubbed his big bald head and grinned. She's not simple. Currently, Long Zhao's consciousness had long been erased by Ling Xiao. Only a few simple strands of soul consciousness remained. However, it was precisely because of this that there was no possibility of him betraying Long Xiao. Even with his half-sage cultivation, he had only detected a trace of abnormality in the void, which was why he had waited for a moment. With the concealment of the corpse Qi in this secret realm, the two of them easily avoided Xia Zhimeng's divine sense. However, the Lord had said that without his orders, no one was allowed to leave the mystic realm. Boom! A vast divine might descended from the sky and instantly stopped the two disciples of the Nothingness Dao sect in their tracks. The smiles on their faces had yet to fade when they completely froze. What the F***CK? Is he the only one who is ridiculous? Where did such a terrifying demonic aura come from in the periphery of the mystic realm? Either enter the mystic realm or die. However, just as the two disciples of the Nothingness Dao sect felt their legs go weak and were about to kneel down and wait for death, they suddenly saw a bald man who was 10 feet tall in front of them suddenly shout. There was still a choice? The two disciples of the Nothingness Dao sect looked at each other, turned around, and frantically fled into the depths of the realm. It wasn't until the two of them had run hundreds of miles that they stopped in their tracks and looked at each other in confusion. Did you sense the demon's aura just now? It seems like he just entered the Exalt realm. I forget it. Since we're already here, let's just take a stroll in the periphery. At the same time, in the depths of the mystic realm, in a gloomy ancient forest, Qiu Yishui looked resentfully at the dignified young man who was wearing an imperial robe in front of her. Wei Wuye, you don't love me anymore, right? No. Yishui, I will agree to any of your requests. But if the fact that you killed young Master Ling people is exposed, I'm afraid even the entire Saint Emperor Palace will be massacred, let alone your pleasure faction sect. The young man sighed softly, and his brows were filled with gloom. Wei Wuye, to think that your father is one of the 5 emperors. I didn't expect you to be so cowardly. Where's this place? As long as we do it carefully and push the blame to that demon, who will know that we killed Ling Xiao. A sinister look flashed across Qiu Yishui's eyes. Ling Xiao was overbearing and had actually killed 3 disciples of her sect. Moreover, What made Qiu Yixue even more unbearable was that this young man was not affected by her seduction technique at all. If she did not kill him, Qiu Yixue's Dao heart would be flawed. Now, everyone was in the mystic realm, and the sky demon was the scapegoat. Even if Ling Xiao was peerless, as long as the plan was meticulous and they had enough manpower, how difficult would it be to kill a young venerable? Yixue, after all, this time, I won't let you do as you wish. Wei Wuya snorted coldly, and the last trace of hesitation on his face instantly disappeared. Is that so? Wei Wuya, do you think you have a choice? However, at that moment, what surprised Wei Wuya was that the pleading look on the girl's face suddenly disappeared, and it was replaced by extreme resentment. Yixue, what are you trying to do? Don't think that I will show mercy just because we've done it a few times. Wei Wuya's eyes narrowed slightly, and the spiritual light around his body suddenly rippled, enveloping the entire ancient forest. Hee, Wei Wuya, do you really think there's free food in this world? If you eat too much seafood cherries, you'll also get heaty. Qiu Yixue smiled sweetly, deliberately exposing her delicate shoulders and licking her lips with her sweet tongue. What do you mean? Don't you know what I mean? Don't you feel that you're becoming more and more dependent on me? Hee. Sword man, how dare you poison me? Wei Wuya's expression changed, and he suddenly pressed his palm down, instantly shattering the void, and grabbed Qiu Yixue's neck. Kill me. If you kill me, you'll never be able to cure the poison in your body. However, Qiu Yixue did not panic at all. Instead, the smile on her face became even more sinister. Hand over the antidote, or I'll make you beg for death. Beg for death? Ha. Wei Wuya, I'm afraid that in the end, you'll be the one begging for death, right? What do you want? I've already discussed with the Mystic Immortal Sect, Spirit Rock Mountain Sect, Green Wind Palace, and the other young masters of the 5 sections. We'll find an opportunity to kill Ling Xiao. As soon as Qiu Yixue finished speaking, she saw Wei Wuya's face turn even paler. He felt as if there was a wisp of green light shining above his head, and the anger around his body was invisibly extinguished. Kill Ling Xiao. Give me the antidote, and we won't see each other for the rest of our lives. Wei Wuya suddenly leaned against the ancient tree behind him as if he was discouraged, and his face was filled with confusion and hesitation. Kill Ling Xiao. In the past, he did not even dare to think about it. But now, he could only be willing to become the blade in Qiu Yixue's hands. As for the other young masters and heirs of the other 5 sects, most of them were probably under Qiu Yixue's skirt and were being toyed with by her. Otherwise, who would have the guts to take the initiative to kill Ling people? Chapter 1019. Boom! In the depths of the secret realm, Ling Xiao calmly looked at a tall demonic beast that was surrounded by corpse aura. At this moment, Xianyuan Weiyang held the ancient sword in her hand with a nervous expression on her face. On the other hand, Yi Qingchan shook her head with a bitter smile. She reached out and grabbed her wrist. Don't be nervous. Young master is here. Just as she finished speaking, Ling Xiao stepped out and punched down. On the other hand, the abnormally ferocious demon beast whose cultivation was close to the saint realm and had been tainted by corpse qi actually shattered like a piece of paper and scattered all over the ground. Ugh! Xianyuan Weiyang's face turned pale, and she almost vomited. We should be there soon. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at a barren mountain that pierced the sky not far away. There was not a trace of emotion in his eyes. At this moment, he could feel that the closer he got to the mountain, the denser and more terrifying the corpse aura became. Under the nourishment of the corpse aura, some of the demonic beasts with ordinary bloodlines and no intelligence had already stepped into the venerable realm. Obviously, there should be some secrets hidden here. If you're not feeling well, let Qingshan take you to the entrance to rest. Ling Xiao frowned, but saw that although Xianyuan Weiyang's face was pale, her eyes were filled with determination. No need. I came out this time to train my mind with young master. How can I let this little thing? Ugh. Looking at Xianyuan Weiyang, who had a determined expression and was vomiting nonstop, Ling Xiao shook his head and walked away without saying anything else. Master. However, just as Ling Xiao was about to take a step, the voice of the overlapping shadow came from the Sea of Soul. Speak. The holy maiden of the Joy sect seems to have made some moves. She met the young masters of the five forces in a day and is now secretly investigating your whereabouts. Oh. The corner of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up, and the blood moon suddenly appeared in his eyes. Xianyuan Weiyang felt the world darken and her consciousness become dizzy. In the blink of an eye, she regained her clarity. What happened just now? I'm fine. Let's go. Ling Xiao's eyes were clear and cold as he walked forward again. On the other hand, Xianyuan Weiyang's face seemed to flash with a hint of confusion, and the gaze he looked at Ling Xiao with became even more respectful and curious. This cousin of his was really unfathomable. Only after the three figures had walked far away did two figures appear on the ancient tree. Bai Ling, where's Li Jichu? Ling Xiao's Taoist body said indifferently. Bai Ling's voice immediately sounded. Brother, Li Jichu is now in a valley less than 500 kilometers east of the center of the secret realm. She encountered a ferocious beast at the peak of the venerable realm. She is now fighting fiercely, but she has been seriously injured. Oh, just in time. Ling Xiao's Dao clone nodded slightly. He transmitted his voice to Folded Shadow, asked the secret guardians to spread the news. Tell Qiu Yishui that I'm in great trouble in a valley 1,000 li east of the center of the mystical realm. I'm being harassed by a 9th grade Martial Highness Realm Beast. Yes, Master. With that, Ling Xiao's Dao clone no longer hesitated and rushed toward Bai Ling. Since it was an act, there had to be an audience. The first disciple of the Confucian Institute cultivated righteousness and had a flawless Dao heart. She was also a genius of the Confucian Institute and enjoyed a great reputation in the Azure world. With her witnessing Ling Xiao's battle with the Sky Demon, the world would praise the young master's holy name. 5 young masters of the ancient sects? As for why he left the other sacred body here, Ling Xiao had always felt that the son of destiny with the reincarnation mark would appear sooner or later. This sacred body was indestructible and full of blood and qi. Letting him hide in the dark and wait for an opportunity to make a move would prevent any unforeseen events. In the mystical realm, the corpse qi was like an ocean. Waves of spiritual power swept through the ancient forests and mountains. Countless disciples of the ancient sects were either in groups of 3 to 5 or traveling alone. They were engaged in an earth-shattering battle with the zombie demons and demonic creatures hidden in the mountains. At that moment, 150 kilometers east of the central mountain range, streams of corpse qi meandered into a river and covered the sky as if they were going to devour the sky and suppress eternity. Li Jichu looked coldly at a terrifying zombie demon that was several feet tall in front of her. Her aura was weak, and there were even traces of blood at the corner of her mouth. At that moment, her eyes were filled with fear. The zombie demon in front of her was obviously at the peak of the venerable state. Moreover, no matter what she did, she seemed to be unable to break the zombie demon's defense. Damn it, do I really have to leave this place? With Li Jichu's identity, she naturally had some life-saving trump cards in her hands. However, once she used her means to escape this place, it would be difficult for her to seize the treasure and kill the demon. Roar! Just as Li Jichu was pondering in her heart, the zombie demon's figure had already swept over from the sky. Billowing demonic aura mixed with extremely eerie corpse qi instantly enveloped the entire space. Outside Li Jichu's body, a vast righteous aura soared into the sky like a divine pillar that wanted to illuminate all the darkness in the world. However, just as she slashed out with the ancient sword in her hand, the zombie demon's scarlet eyes suddenly emitted an endless evil light. Immediately after, Li Jichu felt a vast soul power descend from the sky and firmly imprison her body on the spot. Li Jichu's pretty face changed, and a trace of fear finally appeared in her heart. It turned out that the zombie demon's true terror was not its indestructible body, but the power of its soul. This pressure was already comparable to that of a human saint realm expert. Even if she wanted to escape, she would not be able to move at all. Buzz! An ear-piercing sound of wind breaking rang out. Li Jichu watched as the zombie demon stretched out its two sharp claws like a ghost demon and grabbed towards her. No! At this moment, Li Jichu's heart trembled, and her eyes were already filled with darkness. She did not expect that as the first disciple of the Confucian institution, she would be killed by a barren mountain demon before she could even see the demon's shadow. In the distant ancient forest, Ling Xiao was dressed in black. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the scene in front of him with a clear gaze. At this moment, there seemed to be thousands of souls in his eyes, and runes were evolving, revealing endless mysteries. That's right, the soul pressure that Li Jichu sensed just now was not controlled by the zombie demon at all, but by Ling Xiao secretly. With his current level of soul, coupled with the heavenly might of the primordial divine talisman, not to mention a 6th-grade Venerable Realm expert, even a peak Venerable Realm expert would not have the slightest chance to resist if caught off guard. Moreover, Li Jichu was severely injured and her Dao heart was unstable. Under the cover of the layers of corpse chi, she could not sense Ling Xiao's aura at all. Only the danger of certain death would make one shed tears of gratitude. Buzz! The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up slightly as he suddenly took a step forward. In the next moment, his figure tore through the void and appeared in front of Li Jichu. Lightning seemed to bloom on his fair palms, forming a seal out of thin air and colliding fiercely with the zombie demon's two sharp claws. Boom! With Ling Xiao's powerful physical body, killing this zombie demon was just a matter of waving his hand. However, now he wanted to make Li Jichu feel grateful and lure Qiu Yixue into the trap. Of course, he had to appear more pathetic. The flaws that you think are just what I want you to see. In the future, you will understand that this world is really not worth it. Chapter 10:20. Boom! A muffled groan resounded between heaven and earth. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts illuminated the firmament and annihilated the endless corpse aura. Even so, under the zombie demon's sharp claws, the peerless figure in black was still sent flying. Until then, Li Jichu's face was still in a daze. She stared blankly at the figure who was vomiting blood. There was nothing but shock in her beautiful eyes. Beep. The daughter of Providence is grateful. Congratulations to the host for plundering 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. Young Master Ling Xiao. Let's go. Ling Xiao's figure landed, but he did not hesitate at all. He grabbed Li Jichu's jade-like hand, and the Dao patterns around his body flowed. His body turned into a graceful swan and swept toward the distant mountain. Li Jichu, on the other hand, did not feel any hesitation or restraint. She only felt an indescribable shyness and warmth. Buzz! The wind whistled. In the endless black curtain of corpse aura, two figures flew past rapidly and tore through the clouds. However, the zombie demon who was at the peak of the Venerable Realm was still chasing after them, crossing thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. Li Jichu stared blankly at the tall figure in black in front of her. She allowed his hair to quietly slap her cheeks, and she felt a little numb. At the same time, at the peak of a barren mountain in the depths of the secret realm, Qiu Yixue stood with her hands behind her back. There was no trace of her usual charm on her pretty face. Instead, there was a hint of coldness and domineering. Behind her, 5 young men in luxurious clothes stood neatly in a row. They looked cold and arrogant. Although the 5 of them stood side by side, they did not look at each other. There was even a hint of resentment in their eyes. Above their heads was a patch of dark green corpse aura, which made the 6 of them look even more ferocious. Saint Yixue. Then, the sound of wind breaking could be heard from afar. An ancient sex descendant descended from the sky and bowed to Qiu Yixue. I found out. Ling Xiao is with Li Jichu now, but both of them are being pursued by a corpse demon at the peak of the Exalt realm, and both of them have suffered quite heavy injuries. Oh, truly, the heavens are helping me. Qiu Yixue's lips curled into a cold smile, and his eyes were filled with resentment. Are you worthy? These 3 words had already become a demon in her heart, especially since Qiu Yishui cultivated the celestial art of pleasures and used men as her slaves. Ling Zhao's words were no different from breaking her Dao heart. Of course, before she killed the young master of the Ling people, she had to taste him personally. After all, Ling Xiao was born with a celestial beauty that made people unable to stop themselves. If I can't have you, I'll take you by force and then destroy you. Yishui, I still feel that this trip is inappropriate. If we can't kill Ling Xiao, slap. Before Wei Wuye could finish his words, Qiu Yishui's jade-like hand had already slapped his face. Instantly, blood trickled down from the corner of Wei Wuye's mouth, and his eyes were so gloomy that he wanted to kill people. Once upon a time, Qiu Yishui was just a plaything on his bed. She had many tricks and was very interesting. However, he never dreamed that he had already been tricked by this demonic woman and fell in her trap. This was not what made Wei Wuye most angry. What made him most angry was that he, the son of the Saint Emperor of the Saint Emperor Palace, was actually just one of this demonic woman's gigolos. It turned out that he was just one of her playthings. We can't kill Ling Xiao. If the 6 of us can't kill a wounded Ling Xiao and Li Zichu, then we don't need to live anymore. If this guy doesn't die, we will all become his stepping stones in less than 100 years. Qiu Yishui snorted and waved her jade-like hand gently. A golden array suddenly appeared and stood in front of everyone. This is the sacred artifact of the Harmony sect, the floating light ancient array. Hearing this, everyone's eyes trembled slightly, and the nervousness on their faces dissipated. Everyone had heard of this sacred artifact before. It had the power to seal the heavens. As long as Ling Xiao could enter this array, it was not impossible to kill him. Yes, this young master of the Ling people was indeed a celestial beauty. However, the 6 of them were all famous geniuses in the Qing Song Empire. Now that they were in the secret realm, killing was chaotic, and the sky demon was the scapegoat. As long as they did it cleanly, no one would suspect them. Don't worry, I won't joke around with my life. This is the human skin jade mask of the Harmony sect. It can change one's appearance. Even if there are changes in this trip, no one will know our identities. Qiu Yishui smiled charmingly and waved her hand to hand each of the 6 people a human skin mask. Then, she walked towards the direction where Ling Xiao and Li Zichu had fled. On the other side, Ling Xiao fled with Li Zichu and finally hid in a secluded valley. Only then did they completely escape the zombie demon's pursuit. In the depths of the secluded valley, Ling Xiao covered Li Zichu's jade-like mouth with one hand, indicating that she should not make a sound. Li Zichu's delicate body tensed up, and she instinctively wanted to break free. However, when she saw the gentle celestial face in front of her and the seriousness and nervousness on this celestial face, she inexplicably felt a sense of tranquility in her heart. Her tense body gradually relaxed, and Li Zichu slowly closed her eyes. At this moment, she could feel the hard and broad chest of the young man in front of her, as well as his thumping heart. It was a kind of nervous anticipation that she had never felt before. Until Ling Xiao sighed softly and stood up to retreat to the side, Li Zichu actually felt a faint sense of disappointment in her heart. Beep. The person of Providence's mind is rippling. Congratulations to the host for plundering 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. That zombie demon should have gone far. Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at Li Zichu's rosy face with a gentle smile. Senior Sisterly, are you all right? I'm fine. How's the young master's injury? Li Zichu gently shook her head. Her jade-like hands uneasily rubbed the corner of her clothes. All right. How did the young master know that I was here? I was not far away. When I saw the golden light pillar in the void, I thought that a treasure had appeared. I didn't expect. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly, but Li Zichu smiled. It seems that I am fated to meet the young master. However, just as she finished speaking, Li Zichu felt that it was a little ambiguous, and her face turned even redder. Let's go. There's a barren mountain in the center of this mystic realm. There seems to be demonic intent on it. Let's go and take a look together. On the other hand, Ling Xiao did not seem to care at all. He lifted his foot and walked out of the valley. However, just as the two of them walked out of the cave, they suddenly saw golden light above their heads. Layers of Taoist rhymes spread across hundreds of miles, enveloping the entire valley. Then, 6 figures dressed in different clothes with extremely cold expressions appeared in the air above the valley. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and shielded Li Jichu behind him. It was such a small action that made this first disciple of the Confucian Institute feel an inexplicable warmth. However, the 6 people in front of him obviously did not come with good intentions. In the entire Azure world, who would dare to attack the young master of the Ling people? The Sky Demon. Suddenly, Li Jichu seemed to have thought of something. She looked as if she was facing a great enemy. The ancient sword in her jade-like hand emitted a clear light. It was obvious that she was prepared to fight with her life. Young Master Ling, are you surprised? Are you surprised? Qiu Yishui's voice was hoarse, and her face was covered with the evil and ugly skin of a young woman. Especially when she saw the surprise in Ling Xiao's eyes, she felt an indescribable joy in her heart. Chapter 10:21. Let me guess. Since you've trapped me with such fanfare, you must be the subordinates of the Sky Demon, Qin Shun, right? Ling Xiao raised his head. His eyes were cold, but there was no change in his expression. He had done this for Li Jichu, the first disciple of the Confucian Institute, to see the Daotian Academy. This force might not be as powerful as the top immortal sects and ancient clans in the Azure continent. However, this academy had been around for 100,000 years and had taught countless talents in the Azure continent. It could be said that in the eyes of the world, the Daotian Academy was worthy of being called the sacred ground of the human race. There was no discrimination in education. Even if one came from humble background, as long as one was hardworking and focused on the Tao, one could open up one's own path in the academy. Li Jichu was the first disciple of the Confucian Institute and cultivated the Tao of morality. Her words were naturally more convincing. Ling Xiao, you're smart. Wei Wuye snorted. The trace of dried blood at the corner of Ling Xiao's mouth made him feel more at ease. The information was correct. Ling Xiao was also trapped. It seemed that there would be no more accidents. The Sky Demon indeed has an accomplice. Ling Xiao nodded. Spiritual power suddenly surged around him. In his hand, the great sage Futian emitted a clear light. The sound of a sword could be heard faintly. Rumor has it that Master Ling Xiao is invincible. Why don't you show us today? Qiu Yishui looked at him mockingly. She did not take the severely injured Ling Xiao seriously at all. If the 6 great prodigies of the Azure continent could not kill an injured supremacy today, they would be too ashamed to return to their sections. Let me correct you. Ling Xiao shook his head slightly, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. This is not a rumor. Then, he did not give them any time to react. The ancient sword in his hand was suddenly unsheathed. The piercing light of the sword bloomed in the sky. A sudden sword hum shook the sky. A strand of sword light was like the beginning of the universe, deriving an epoch since the ancient times. Before the smiles on the faces of Qiu Yishui and the others had faded, they suddenly froze. At that moment, they seemed to be able to see countless anomalies appear where the sword light passed. The blue sky shattered, and the bright sun set in the west. Large expanses of primordial mist and primal chaos, purple qi covered the sky. Furthermore, the 6 people who were originally standing side by side suddenly seemed to be separated into 6 completely different worlds. In front of him were layers upon layers of immortal figures and 3,000 Buddhas and devils bowing their heads in worship. Vaguely, a divine figure stepped through the ages and arrived. It held the heaven-splitting saint's sword in its hand, and it easily separated the heavens and the earth. Even the cycle of reincarnation and the river of order were completely severed. Qiu Yishui's face was completely drained of blood. She immediately gathered her spiritual power in front of her, as if she wanted to completely block that wisp of clear light. But he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it all. The world in front of him began to wither and shatter. Endless darkness surged, the last ray of light in his life. What Xiao Shui saw was the despair in Wei Wuye's eyes from the Holy Emperor Palace beside him. The clear light streaked across the sky, and a few drops of blood fell from the sky. Then Li Zichu was stunned to see the 6 subordinates of the Sky Demon, who had obviously stepped into the venerable realm, all neatly beheaded. From the beginning to the end, they didn't resist at all. In other words, in the face of absolute power, they couldn't resist at all. Time froze, and in the blink of an eye, it returned to normal. At that moment, Li Zichu seemed to see a long river with countless figures flowing in the sky. Among them, there were divine figures that were tens of thousands of feet tall, heavenly birds that flapped their wings and were about to fly, and there were also mortals. However, no matter who it was difficult for them to break free from the long river of time, and they couldn't fall. Step by step, they could only be pushed by the crowd towards the end of time, until they disappeared. Time, space, and chaos. The 3 great Daos were displayed by the sword. At that moment, Li Zichu seemed to see immortals. Ling Xiao kept his sword, and his eyes were calm. The strange phenomenon of heaven and earth slowly dissipated, and only the 6 corpses fell from the sky. Their blood splattered on the ground, proving the reality of the scene just now. 6. 4th or 5th grade Venerable Realm cultivators without any luck. Even if he didn't use the Great Daos, he could still easily kill them. However, there was no trace of demonic intent on the 6 people, and their cultivation techniques were not related to demons. Once they attacked, it was inevitable that they would reveal their flaws. Moreover, people always liked to kneel and beg for mercy when they were in despair. If they revealed the truth, it would spoil Ling Xiao's plan. Only dead people could cover all the secrets. Lord Ling Xiao. Li Zichu covered her red lips with her hand, and her eyes trembled. She had seen countless geniuses and also those who were called taboo in the current generation. However, the sword just now was something that even the most talented cultivators in the Daotian Academy couldn't withstand, let alone Li Zichu. Invincible immortal aura, crushing the current generation. It turned out that these 8 words were not a compliment, but a statement. The Sky Demon's vassals deserve to die. However, I don't know how many people are hiding in the dark and secretly protecting the Sky Demon. Ling Xiao sighed deeply. Li Zichu saw a kind of temperament that was exactly the same as the Mansion Masters in him. It was a kind of helplessness that cared about the common people, but his strength was not enough. It was also a kind of determination that wanted to bring peace to the world. The righteous path of the human world belongs to young Master alone. His hair was tied up in black, and his face was immortal. Who could defeat him in the world? Li Zichu's delicate body trembled slightly, and a trace of blood dripped from the corner of her mouth. She never dreamed that reverence for someone could make her Dao heart tremble to such an extent. Lord Ling Xiao, you are unparalleled in the world. Senior Sister Li, how are you? Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at Li Zichu worriedly. However, the latter shook her head slightly, and her eyes were sad. I cultivated the righteous aura for 300 years, and I thought that my Dao heart was flawless. Today, I realized that compared to young Master, my Dao heart is really insignificant. Senior Sister, you flatter me. In fact, righteousness is not the only thing in this righteousness. Ling Xiao smiled gently and took out a pill from his pocket. Senior Sister, you should recover from your injuries first. I'm afraid that there will be many dangers waiting for us. Thank you, young Master. Gentle as jade, not arrogant or proud. It turned out that there were indeed records in ancient books in this world. Young Master, you was flawless, pure, and natural. Boom. However, just as Li Zichu swallowed the pill in her hand, a terrifying roar suddenly came from the center of the secret realm in the distance. A ray of demonic light shot into the sky and evolved into thousands of miles of corpse clouds. The entire supreme secret realm seemed to have the power of heaven and earth crashing down. Countless corpse demons roared at the sky, their voices miserable, their bodies shattered and turned into layers of corpse chi that gathered at the top of the mountain. Ling Xiao frowned slightly and turned to look at Li Jichu. "Senior Sister Li, your injuries are quite serious. Don't go over." "No, young master, I'm fine." Li Jichu's eyes were resolute. Although her face was pale, she was fearless, with a little righteous aura in the chest, where in the world was not righteous. Moreover, traveling with young master was also a kind of improvement for Li Jichu. Cough, cough. It was an opportunity to observe the cultivation of the heart. "Then I'll go first. Search for the demonic traces." Ling Xiao nodded lightly. He took a step forward, and his body transformed into a graceful figure that flew across the sky. "Young master, be careful." Suddenly, the entire secret realm was filled with countless rainbow lights that pierced through the sky and went straight to the place where the corpse chi lingered. With such a commotion, it was likely that the real treasure in this secret realm had appeared. Chapter 1022. Boom, boom. The sky cracked, and corpse clouds stretched for thousands of miles. It was as if the heavens were punishing the world. However, just as all the disciples and prodigies of the ancient clans were rushing toward the center of the mystic realm, a figure quietly appeared in a forest at the edge of the mystic realm. Yang Yuan's eyes were filled with mockery. He glanced at the scorching black stone seal in his hand, and then looked at the corpse cloud in the sky. Suddenly, a smile bloomed on his face. Judging from the fluctuations from the mysterious stone seal, the true inheritance left behind by the senior was not in the center of the mystic realm, but in the border area. With the stone seal as a guide and the corpse traces hidden, no one would compete with him for the good fortune. The heavens are on my side. However, just as Yang Yuan was about to walk toward the forest in front of him, a sinister laugh suddenly came from above. Hee hee. Bao, why are you in such a hurry? Are you going to do something bad?" Two figures clad in battle armor descended from the sky, stopping Yang Yuan in his tracks. They were sizing him up with wicked smiles on their faces. Yang Yuan's expression froze when he saw the two of them. He quietly put the stone seal into his interspatial ring and asked with a frown, "Why are you stopping me?" He could feel that the two young men in strange clothes were at the 5th stage of the venerable realm. They were more than one stage higher than him. Even if Yang Yuan had cultivated the jade golden body, he would have no chance of winning against the two of them. "Why are we stopping you? Don't you have any idea?" The two of them looked at each other arrogantly. They were not disciples of the demon-slaying hall at all. They were from the Cyan Azure Demon Sect and the Aquamoon Heavenly Abode. However, the world was stupid and was deeply afraid of the Realm Lord Hall. Moreover, the demon-slaying hall had not appeared in the world for a long time. Even if the two of them pretended to be disciples, no one would dare to suspect them. Over the years, the two of them had wandered hundreds of mystic realms, big and small, and deceived people as disciples of the demon-slaying hall. Not only did they succeed in extorting many people from the ancient and celestial sects, but they even the successors of some of the top orthodoxies and supreme tribes treated them with respect. Such treatment allowed the two of them to quickly accumulate a huge amount of medicinal pills and spirit treasures, and their cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Of course, the reason why the two of them were able to survive until today was closely related to their cautiousness. Most of the people they blackmailed and threatened were those with low cultivation levels who did not seem threatening at all. Even when it came to the true fortune of this secret realm, the two of them had never touched it for fear of being killed by others. They had been eyeing Yang Yuan for a long time. He was sneaky and had just entered the venerable realm. He was clearly a pushover. "Who are you two?" Yang Yuan's brows furrowed slightly as he secretly calculated in his heart. Should he fight or should he flee for the time being? "Who are we?" Hee. There are actually people in the Azure Sky realm who don't recognize the ox and horse brothers of the demon-slaying palace. To tell you the truth, in this secret realm, other than the Lord Ling Xiao, the two of us are the best. Neo and Ma looked at each other, their eyes filled with disdain. Brat, I can see that you're sneaky. You're obviously not a good person. Now, I suspect that you're related to the Sky Demon. Hurry up and hand over your Cosmos sack. We'll verify it before you leave. What? Yang Yuan clenched his fists. He finally understood why the two of them had stopped him. Could it be that these two were actually robbing him? You want to see my Cosmos sack? Dream on. Yang Yuan snorted coldly. Just as he was about to turn and leave, he saw the two of them laugh disdainfully. They suddenly rushed out and surrounded Yang Yuan. It's fine if you don't want to give me your Cosmos sack. You just need to take out 100,000 spiritual stones or a sacred weapon to become a good witness for our Demon Slayer Hall. In the future, when you see our Demon Slayer Hall disciples, you only need to show this proof and you'll be safe and sound. Neo and Ma each held a black ancient sword in their hands. Ghostly patterns flickered on them, and evil light lingered around them. At first glance, one could tell that they were evil items. Good witness? Ridiculous. If you don't get out of my way, don't blame me for being rude. Yang Yuan frowned. His stone seal was in his Cosmos sack. There was no way he would let the two of them check it. However, in the face of two fifth-level Venerable Realm cultivators, he was not confident that he could win. Whoosh! Yang Yuan gritted his teeth. He suddenly turned around and ran toward the mountain stream in the distance. If he could find the inheritance left by that senior, he might be able to uncover the secret of the Reincarnation Divine Palace. The 1,000-weapon Daoist scripture was the most terrifying secret of this ancient force. By then, he would be able to kill two Venerable Realm cultivators. You still want to run? Young man, let me give you a piece of advice. If you can't grasp some opportunities, you might as well give them to someone more powerful than you. Neo and Ma looked at each other with a sinister smile on their faces. Just as Yang Yuan's figure was about to disappear, a black light suddenly bloomed within 100 miles. It was like a ghost cauldron that blocked his path again. Young man, no one who has been targeted by the Demon Slayer Hall has been able to escape. Now, I suspect that you're a demon disciple. You have a guilty conscience. I'll sentence you to death. Neo and Ma stepped forward at the same time and slashed down with their demonic sabers. Buzz! An ear-piercing buzzing sound was heard. 200-meter-long saber radiances instantly cut through the void and fell toward Yang Yuan's head. There seemed to be demonic fog rising from it. Evil spirits evolved. Yang Yuan could not dodge in time and was hit in the chest by the saber radiance. Boom! The young man's figure was immediately sent flying. Blood spurted out of his mouth. However, what was surprising was that although Yang Yuan's aura was a little weak, he was not injured at all. The expressions of the ox and the horse turned cold. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. Although they did not use their full strength, it was easy to kill someone who had just entered the Venerable Realm. Why did this young man only spit out blood? Damn it, I'm rich. There must be some amazing opportunities hidden in this guy's body. Kill! The sky demon light was extinguished. Neo and Ma descended from the sky and wanted to kill Yang Yuan on the spot. But right at this moment, a wisp of confusion appeared on their faces. They seemed to feel a chill creeping up behind them. The two of them turned their heads in a daze, only to see a beautiful figure walking over from the void. In her jade-like hand, a crimson dagger leisurely slashed down, and with lightning speed, it shattered the layers of demonic light and fell down with a loud bang. Damn it! Neo and Ma's expressions changed drastically. Even with their levels of cultivation, they were unable to sense when the young woman had arrived behind them. In particular, the killing intent on her body caused them to feel an extremely deep sense of fear. Endless Tao patterns evolved. The blue sky could not bear its power. The sky demon light was suddenly annihilated. Only a ray of red light streaked across the sky and slashed horizontally. Boom! Neo and Ma did not dare to hesitate. The spiritual light around them was vast and mighty. The demonic sabers in their hands slashed out at the same time to meet the murderous intent. Pucci, however, in a hurry, the two of them were still slashed to the ground. Their faces were extremely gloomy. Where did this little girl come from? How dare you ruin our plan? Let's go. Xia Jiming looked at Yang Yuan deeply. She had followed him all the way and had already seen the ancient seal in his hand that was shining with divine light. If she guessed correctly, there should be opportunities in this secret realm that belonged to Yang Yuan. It seemed that her master was right. This young man was a little different. Chapter 1023. You want to leave? You're looking down on us too much. Nioma and Nyo looked gloomy as their spiritual aura surged. At that moment, a demonic shadow appeared behind them. Demonic intent flowed around it, and it was ferocious. Then, the two of them ignored Yang Yuan and pounced towards Xia Jiming. With Yang Yuan's strength, there was no way he could break through the seal of a formation here. As long as they killed Xia Jiming, the secrets of these two would belong to them. Moreover, the girl in front of them was beautiful and unparalleled. I'll let you be my slave later and experience the bliss of the world. Buzz! Xia Jiming's face froze when she saw the two figures rushing towards her. Killing intent surged around her. She moved forward with light steps instead of retreating. Red light flowed on the dagger in her hand, and it evolved into endless killing intent. A vast murderous aura suddenly surged out, like the sun of a star ocean, and also like an army of 10,000 running amok. Nyoma and Nyonyo's expressions changed. Just as they were about to block it, they saw the girl's figure suddenly disappear, leaving only an afterimage that was ruthlessly slashed into pieces by their demonic sabers. Let's go! Xia Jiming descended from the sky and grabbed Yang Yuan's hand. She slashed out with the dagger in her hand and slashed a crack that was dozens of feet long in the void. She and Yang Yuan's figures instantly disappeared on the spot. Huh? What the hell? Nyoma and Nyo were stunned. When they looked up again, the two of them were already outside the formation and frantically fleeing towards the forest in the distance. Chase! The two of them hesitated for a moment, but in the end, they were still unwilling to give up. They put away the formation and chased after them. Although, there was an extremely rich fluctuation of Tao law on the girl's body just now, and that killing intent even made the two of them feel a lingering fear. However, that young man was a good-for-nothing. Moreover, if she really had the strength to fight two fifth-stage Exalted Realm cultivators alone, why would she flee in such a sorry state? Buzz! It was only when the four of them disappeared into the distance that a graceful figure in black appeared in the void. My lord, the two of them met two youths. One of the youths should be a disciple of the Void Dao sect. However, they managed to escape. Until now, Folded Shadow still couldn't understand why his lord wanted her to follow the two idiots. Is that how it's called? A disciple of the Void Dao sect? Somewhere in the secret land, Ling Xiao's saint being's mouth suddenly raised into a smile, and his figure suddenly disappeared. They're here, my lord. In the tall mountain forest, Stack's shadow bowed towards the young man who had descended from the sky. They are hiding in front of us. The ox and the horse did not discover their tracks. Yes. Ling Xiao's eyes flickered as he looked at the two figures hiding in an ancient tree hole. In the next instant, his eyes slightly focused. At this moment, he could see that both of them were protected by Providence. This was especially true for the white-clothed young man, who had actually reached a terrifying number of 18,000. As for the young lady, she was obviously just a gift with 8,000 Providence. However, what made Ling Xiao slightly surprised was that the young lady had comprehended the Tao laws of massacre in space. Folded Shadow, go and capture a disciple of the Void Dao sect. Ling Xiao muttered softly after pondering for a while. Now that the demonic traces had appeared in the center of the secret land, if there were other children of destiny, they would definitely appear. However, both of them had Providence. Not only did they not go to fight for the treasures, but they also hid in the border of the secret land. Since things were abnormal, there must be good fortune. However, he could easily kill the young lady, but he still wanted to play with the young man. Yes, Folded Shadow nodded slightly, and suddenly disappeared from the spot. She had already ordered the secret guards to hide in various parts of the secret land. No information could escape her grasp. However, there were two disciples of the Void Dao sect who were wandering around nearby. Logically speaking, the two of them should have feelings for each other. However, it seems like the two of them have just met. Ling Xiao frowned and looked at Yang Yuan and Xia Zhimeng, who were sitting in the tree hole far away. His gaze was still calm. If he was not wrong, the young man in front of him most likely had a reincarnation mark on him. Otherwise, he would not have appeared in this secret land for no reason. With Ling Xiao's strength, it would not take much effort to snatch the mark. However, with such high providence, if he could make use of it slightly, perhaps there would be unexpected results. For example, luring him to the Daotian Academy and acting as a suitable scapegoat. With that thought, Ling Xiao's face immediately revealed a gentle look. He suddenly stretched out his hand and shattered the clear light boundary on the ancient tree. His figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. There they are. In the distant void, Neo and Ma were stunned. When they saw Yang Yuan and Xia Zhimeng rushing out, a look of excitement appeared in their eyes. Chase. Senior. Don't. Whether it's money or sex, just say the word. I'm fine with anything. Please don't kill me. At this moment, at the edge of the ancient forest, two disciples of the Nihility Dao sect were kneeling on the ground, crying bitterly. Although Folded Shadows cultivation was also at the venerable realm, how could two disciples of the Dao sect compare to the methods of this ancient demon? However, at this moment, Folded Shadow did not say a word. Only when the space in front of him rippled did he bow down. Master, these two are disciples of the Dao sect, and they're the personal disciples of the Dao sect master. Oh. Ling Xiao stepped out with his saint body and looked at the two people in front of him with a gentle expression. Master? The two disciples of the Dao sect swallowed their saliva fiercely. When they saw Ling Xiao's immortal aura, for some reason, the fear in their hearts dissipated a lot. However, before the two of them could open their mouths, they saw tens of thousands of rays of soul light in the youth's eyes. They turned into two ancient imprints and entered their soul seas in a flash. Burp, buzz. As the buzzing sound resounded, many memories appeared in front of Ling Xiao's eyes. He suddenly had an idea of the identity of the two people in the Heaven's Mandate and the origin of their providence. Yang Yuan's experience was nothing to be surprised about. He was an orphan, had an ordinary appearance, and had been bullied and ridiculed. His golden finger was most likely the reincarnation imprint. From the memories of the two disciples of the Dao sect, Ling Xiao could roughly guess that he should have cultivated a body-tempering cultivation technique, which allowed him to crush his peers with the power of his physical body. It was just that 18,000 providence was a little too terrifying. Could it be that the reincarnation imprint that he had obtained had other secrets? However, this young girl's experience was somewhat out of Ling Xiao's expectations. She had a master who stayed in the Nihility Dao sect all year round, but was not a member of the Dao sect. Even the direct disciples of the Dao sect master did not know about her origins. However, no one dared to offend her. Xia Zhimeng? Massacre Dao law? Did he think of anything? Chapter 1024. Master, do you want to capture those two? Seeing Ling Xiao's gloomy face, Folded Shadow frowned slightly and asked in a deep voice. No need. Fold Shadow, spread the news that an immortal treasure has appeared in the center of the mystic realm. Lure all the ancient sect's elites there. With that, Ling Xiao no longer hesitated and strode towards the place where the spiritual pressure bloomed in the distance. No matter. He had a way to slowly uncover Xia Zhimeng's identity. Ling Xiao did not intend to let go of the master behind her. In fact, from the looks of it, her mysterious master was the key to Ling Xiao's plan. With his existence, perhaps Yang Yuan could achieve greater things in the Daotian Academy. At that time, Ling Xiao only needed to use a little trick to harvest Xia Zhimeng, Yang Yuan, and the fortunes behind them. Boom! Boom! In the sky above the ancient forest, the spiritual pressure was vast and mighty. Xia Jiming held a short dagger in her hand and fought with Nyoma and Nyoma. As divine light scattered, this woman who specialized in the killing Tao was already pale. She was only a fourth-stage venerable. It was obvious that it was a little difficult for her to fight against two fifth-stage venerables. Under her feet, Yang Yuan's aura was weak, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Ling Xiao stood in the void with his hands behind his back and frowned slightly, although a plot like this would eventually turn around and slap people in the face. Moreover, these two people of destiny would completely fall and be touched because of some people who stepped forward bravely. They would never change their minds. However, it was too slow. Therefore, Ling Xiao planned to help them. The sound of a sword suddenly resounded between heaven and earth. The expressions of the three people who were originally fighting changed at the same time. They turned their heads to look behind them, only to see a ray of sword light leisurely slashing down. With an unparalleled momentum, it instantly pierced through the bodies of Nyoma and Nyoma. The two of them didn't even have the time to formally introduce themselves before they were torn apart. Ling Xiao's figure slowly walked over from the void. At this moment, his face was covered by immortal clouds, and his body was surrounded by dazzling lightning. It was impossible to see his appearance clearly. Thank you, Senior, for your help. Xia Jiming was dumbfounded. She turned to face Ling Xiao and bowed. To be able to kill two fifth-level exalted realm experts with a single sword strike, could this person's cultivation have stepped into the Saint Realm? But at this moment, Ling Xiao raised the ancient sword in his hand again and slashed down brazenly. Junior sister Xia. Seeing this scene, Yang Yuan's expression changed drastically. Immediately, without the slightest hesitation, a golden glow bloomed around his body. Even his bones seemed to emit a jade glow. With a fearless attitude, he stood in front of Xia Jiming. At this moment, he had already activated the jade-bone golden body to the extreme. There seemed to be a divine figure towering above his head, shining with boundless light, as if chanting immortal scriptures. Layers of Taoist rhymes covered thousands of miles, forming mountains, rivers, sun, and moon, revealing a supreme, divine aura. At this critical moment, he actually cultivated the body refinement technique that he learned from the ancient seal to the perfect realm. Did you see that? This is the so-called destiny. Breaking through on the verge of death and growing up in adversity can be explained by luck. As the son of destiny, he naturally has a righteous nature and knows how to repay kindness. Xia Jiming had saved him several times. If Yang Yuan still couldn't sacrifice himself for her then, Ling Xiao would give him another chance. Senior, Brother Yang. Xia Jiming's mouth opened slightly. Her eyes were filled with shock. Obviously, she didn't expect that this trash of a senior brother who had always been bullied by others would have such a hot-blooded and resolute side. Boom! The sword light fell, pierced through the blue sky, and cut on the young man's shoulder. Instantly, blood splattered and the bones broke. Even though the jade-bone golden body was a supreme classic, it still seemed very fragile under Ling Xiao's sword intent. Of course, at this moment, Ling Xiao wasn't trying to kill Yang Yuan. He didn't use all his strength in this sword attack. Besides, Yang Yuan still had 18,000 points of providence on him. Who knew what would happen to him when he was about to die? The essence of a plan was to control and turn all unknown factors into knowable ones. Therefore, the moment the sword edge was about to cut the young man's bones, it suddenly disappeared completely. Ling Xiao let out a cry of surprise. Xia Jiming took advantage of this opportunity to swing the dagger in her hand with all her strength. She grabbed Yang Yuan's hand and disappeared in front of him. You want to leave? Ling Xiao roared angrily. He slowly stepped forward and chased after the two. He wanted to force the treasure-seeking mouse to search for the greatest fortune in this arcane realm. However, this time, he didn't want to harvest the leek. He wanted to fertilize the leek and water it. Look how touching the scene of them supporting each other, blood staining their clothes as they fled in a sorry state. Sob, sob, sob. As expected, following Tianming would lead to a beating everywhere. Senior brother, are you okay? Xia Jiming carried Yang Yuan's arm on her shoulder. Dao patterns covered her body. However, no matter how she fled, she could still feel the aura chasing after her. I'm fine. Yang Yuan's face was pale, and his eyes were filled with shock. He did not expect that, even with the might of the jade bone golden body, he would not be able to block the sword essence of the mysterious expert. The path to immortality is really vast and endless. But no matter, as long as I can find the inheritance left by the senior, I, Yang Yuan, will be at the top of the martial path. Junior brother, why don't we leave this place first? Xia Jiming sighed softly. She could deal with the ox and the horse for a while. However, the swordsman who appeared just now gave her an extremely frightening feeling. If Yang Yuan hadn't sacrificed himself to save her, she was afraid that the sword would have easily taken her life. Only by leaving could she have a chance to survive. Unconsciously, Xia Jiming didn't realize that she had begun to put herself in Yang Yuan's shoes. No, junior sister, to be honest, there's a place in this arcane realm that I have to go to. If I miss it, I'm afraid I won't have another chance in the future. Yang Yuan gritted his teeth and sighed. This, before leaving, Master had said that Yang Yuan was blessed with providence and would definitely achieve something in this trial. Now, it seemed that Master was referring to the place that he had to go. In that case, senior brother, I'll lure him away. You go to that place. No, it's too dangerous. Junior sister, I can't let you get hurt because of me. As soon as Yang Yuan finished speaking, he saw Xia Jiming's expression change. Then, she panicked and avoided his eyes. Junior sister, all right, senior brother, I made up my mind. Otherwise, both of us will die. Don't worry, I've been following Master since I was young. I've been cultivating the Tao of killing, and I'm also proficient in concealment. Keep this talisman well. It can conceal your aura. I'll come back to find you after I shake him off. Xia Jiming gritted her teeth, and her face was inexplicably red. Then, without waiting for Yang Yuan to refuse, she stuffed the talisman into his hands and turned to face Ling Zhao's aura. Junior sister. Yang Yuan reached out and wanted to grab Xia Jiming's hand. In the end, he only managed to pull off a corner of her clothes and watch her disappear before his eyes. Junior sister. At this moment, an indescribable feeling rose in Yang Yuan's heart. For the first time in 300 years, someone was willing to risk her life for him. Xia Jiming, this is the last time. I'll allow you to be so willful. When I get the Supreme Master's inheritance and find the reincarnation divine abode, I, Yang Yuan, will never let you bleed again. Chapter 1025. Ling Xiao slowly walked over from the barren mountains and ancient forests with a playful look in his eyes. At this moment, he could feel that Yang Yuan's aura had disappeared. Xia Jiming deliberately released a wisp of energy and fled towards the distant mountains. Shi Patian, Xiong Huan. Boom! Two figures suddenly appeared and stood in front of Ling Xiao. During this period of time, Xiong Huan had been in seclusion in the realm to recover his cultivation and was now at the sage-to-be level. Although he was far from his peak, this demon general's means were enough to fight even against the sage-to-be. Master, Xiong Huan, follow that woman from afar. Shi Patian, hide in the dark and find an opportunity to capture her. Ling Zhao's voice was calm. Even when dealing with a sage-to-be, he did not have the slightest bit of carelessness. It was better to be careful when dealing with a destined person. Yes, Master. The two nodded and immediately chased after Xia Jiming. Ling Xiao, on the other hand, concealed his aura and stealthily landed in the ancient forest, silently waiting for Yang Yuan to appear. Yes, this destined person had indeed concealed his aura, but as long as he made a move, he still could not escape from Ling Zhao's spiritual perception. After a long while, there was a sudden sound of rushing air in front of him. Ling Zhao's face became more gentle, and his figure also disappeared. Time passed slowly until 4 hours later. Yang Yuan's figure suddenly fell from the void and stood at the foot of a barren mountain. At this moment, his face was clearly flickering with excitement, and the ancient pitch-black stone seal in his hand was blooming with a monstrous spirit light. He looked around at the surrounding environment, and without any hesitation, he stepped into a dark cave at the bottom of the mountain. However, the moment his figure disappeared, another black-robed figure quietly appeared at the entrance of the cave. Ling Zhao's expression was calm. He spread out his spiritual perception but did not detect any abnormalities in the cave. In other words, even if he came here, it was impossible for him to notice this cave. Needless to say, under normal circumstances, in a supreme secret realm like this, the treasures would usually be in the deepest parts. No one would have thought that the Reincarnation Palace's expert would leave his inheritance here. Treasure-hunting mouse, as its name suggested. Buzz. Only when a buzzing sound was suddenly heard from afar did Ling Xiao once again conceal his aura and head towards the depths of the cave. At this moment, Yang Yuan's figure had already disappeared without a trace at the end of the tunnel. All that was left was an ancient formation engraved on the mountain wall. Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and gently touched the ancient array. However, he was pushed back by an extremely terrifying pressure. His eyes immediately narrowed. "You do have some tricks up your sleeve," Ling Xiao coldly snorted. This Heavenswell was called Heavenswell because some fortunes could only be enjoyed by them. Even if someone accidentally stumbled into the cave, they would never be able to open the formation and obtain the inheritance within. Unfortunately, Yang Yuan's keepsake was only a reincarnation mark. However, Ling Xiao had 2 of these imprints in his possession. With that thought in mind, Ling Xiao suddenly clenched his fist. The 2 reincarnation marks immediately appeared and were gently imprinted into the ancient formation. Buzz. Divine radiance sprinkled down, and the golden sun illuminated the entire cave, making it as bright as day. The runes on the ancient formation that were originally flowing with tears immediately dissipated and turned into an arrayed door that stood in front of Ling Xiao. Seeing this, Ling Xiao no longer hesitated. He took a step forward and suddenly disappeared from the spot. Boom! A vast supreme divine aura rushed towards him. What appeared in front of Ling Xiao was an ancient underground palace that was at least 10,000 feet long. At the end of the ancient palace, there was a dense fog. Layers of Taoist rhymes were unrestrained, and all kinds of miraculous scenes were formed. Vaguely, there seemed to be a celestial palace standing in the sky. It was dazzling and mighty, and it made people yearn for it. An exalt's inheritance. Ling Zhao's eyes raised slightly. At this moment, he was able to see that Yang Yuan was already seated cross-legged below the celestial palace and bathed in celestial radiance. Obviously, he was prepared to accept the inheritance. But right when the celestial palace descended and was about to envelop his figure, a wave of fluctuation suddenly appeared in the space behind him. Ling Zhao's figure stepped out and kicked Yang Yuan, who had closed his eyes in concentration and had an excited expression over 100 m away. Yang Yuan was in midair, and he opened his eyes blankly with a blank expression. But before his figure could descend to the ground, he saw the scene before him suddenly change and transform into boundless darkness. A black moon hung in the sky. Countless familiar scenes started to flicker around him. Yuan-er, why haven't you come down to accompany us? Yuan-er, my son, Mother missed you so much. Corpses covered in scars slowly crawled out from the pitch-black ground. Their appearances were hideous, and their skin had long decayed. But Yang Yuan's eyes still fiercely narrowed the moment he saw those corpses. Father, mother, sister, tears flowed down uncontrollably. At this moment, Yang Yuan had already lost all feeling in his body. Even when his figure fell to the ground and his face was pressed against the ground, he didn't feel the slightest bit of pain. Is this an illusion? Yang Yuan took a deep breath and raised his head to look at this strange world. His face was filled with bitterness. From the beginning, he felt that this exalted inheritance was too easy to obtain. According to Yang Yuan's thoughts, how could such a terrifying creation not have some tests? Look, isn't it here? although he couldn't sense the flaws of this illusion at all with his cultivation. But how could Senior really hurt me? Thinking of this, Yang Yuan's expression suddenly turned solemn. He sat down cross-legged again and allowed the corpses to surge towards him and finally completely drown him. Clang, clang, clang. The sky demon. It's really here. In the ancient palace, Ling Xiao raised his head to look at the immortal palace above him and frowned slightly. At this moment, the immortal palace suddenly stopped in midair and didn't fall any further. Moreover, even though Ling Xiao had the reincarnation mark, he couldn't sense it at all. Could it be that it's because the mark in Yang Yuan's hand is missing? Ling Xiao raised his foot and walked to the young man who was lying on the ground like a dead dog. He bent down and took the mark in his hand before walking back to the center of the ancient palace. This time, the immortal palace suddenly bloomed with divine light, but it still didn't fall any further. Bai Ling, Ling Xiao waved his hand and summoned Bai Ling from the realm. The moment the girl appeared, the immortal palace suddenly emitted a mighty soul power and surged with Tao intent. An ancient, blurry shadow slowly walked out of the immortal palace and looked at Ling Xiao and Bai Ling. At this moment, although his face was illusory and unclear, his eyes were a strange white. There seemed to be layers of purple lines spreading within them. It was extremely strange. He stood there like a statue, but Ling Xiao could clearly feel the surprise and shock in his eyes. Chapter 10:26. Sure enough, it has something to do with the reincarnation heavenly palace. Ling Xiao glanced at Bai Ling discreetly, only to see that the girl also had a confused look on her face. She was looking up at the old figure. However, with her current cultivation level, she did not panic at all in front of a paragon soul consciousness. Instead, it was as if she was looking at an old friend. Linger, try and see if you can get this opportunity. Ling Xiao waved his hand and handed the 3 reincarnation marks to Bai Ling. In his opinion, there was no difference between this opportunity falling into his hands and Bai Ling's hands. After all, regardless of Bai Ling's identity, the system had verified that she had submitted to him before. The stronger she was, the more benefits it would bring to Ling Xiao. Okay, brother, this soul shadow seems to be calling me. Bai Ling nodded blankly, and a strange soul light suddenly flashed in her beautiful eyes. Then, the split reincarnation marks merged in her hand again, turning into a complete diamond-shaped stone seal. There seemed to be runes intertwined on it, and divine light flowed. It was an extremely mysterious feeling of the great Tao. At this moment, the celestial palace, which had been suspended in midair, burst into a buzzing sound again, and then it fell toward Bai Ling's head. Seeing this scene, Ling Xiao immediately showed a smile on his face. He turned around and walked to the side, quietly watching the celestial palace shatter, turn into endless rays of light, and gather between Bai Ling's eyebrows. Buzz! There was a divine light that spread for 30,000 miles, covering the sky. A look of pain immediately appeared on Bai Ling's face, but she calmed down in the blink of an eye. At this moment, her aura was rising at a speed visible to the naked eye. Boom! The tribulation clouds gathered, and the blue sky shook. The entire barren mountain collapsed at this moment, and smoke and dust rose into the sky. However, even if the lightning meandered and shattered the void, it could not hurt Bai Ling at all. There was a celestial shadow above his head, and with just a glance, it turned the tribulation lightning into nothingness. Very quickly, Bai Ling quietly opened her eyes when there was no longer any activity within the ancient hall. The space in front of him suddenly turned into a vortex. Time ceased to exist, and the Taoist rhymes were obliterated. It was like an eye that could see through the ages and take in all the reincarnations of the universe. The 5th rank of the Exalt realm required 15,000 providence. At this moment, Ling Xiao could sense an extremely obvious reincarnation aura from Bai Ling's body. However, Ling Xiao wasn't sure if this aura belonged to her or if she had inherited it. Suddenly, he seemed to have guessed something. If Bai Ling was really an expert from the reincarnation heavenly abode, then her reincarnation could be understood as stepping out of the restraints of the divine abyss of reincarnation and seeing immortality in the reincarnation cycle. A chill quietly rose from the bottom of Ling Zhao's heart. Sure enough, these ancient characters were all monstrous geniuses with shocking means. Boom! When Bai Ling awoke, the celestial figure above her head transformed into a vast and boundless ocean that descended from the sky. However, when it fell in front of Bai Ling, it condensed into a drop of golden dew, which she held in her hand. Brother, Bai Ling's figure flew over from afar. The coldness on her face had already disappeared, and it turned into a bright smile. Brother, I obtained a cultivation technique that seems to be very powerful. It's called the Concealed Divine Reincarnation Scripture, and this drop of reincarnation true dew. Cultivation technique? Reincarnation true dew? Ling, did you find the location of the reincarnation heavenly abode? A scripture that was passed down from an ancient expert was indeed a great fortune for the heaven's will of this world. However, for Ling Xiao, the sky demon scripture and mysterious heaven ancient scripture that he cultivated were the most extreme of the 9 heavens. What he really cared about was the reincarnation heavenly abode and the countless secret treasures in it, and the secret of the divine abyss of reincarnation. If Liang Yi was right, there might be countless reincarnation realm experts trapped in the divine abyss. At that time, whether it was to be eaten or used, it would be more precious to Ling Xiao than the cultivation technique. However, this true reincarnation do seem to be very delicious? No, brother, the mark of reincarnation has not been activated. It seems that he has to find the location of the heavenly abode. Bai Ling turned her head and looked at Yang Yuan, who was lying on the ground, and frowned slightly. Is that so? Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. He was not surprised at all. Bai Ling was able to obtain the Concealed Divine Reincarnation Scripture and Reincarnation True Dew because she had the aura of reincarnation on her. The fortune and the mark of reincarnation was obviously exclusive to Yang Yuan. However, it was good. The person with the heavens will had to have some expectations to have some motivation. Do your best. The one in front of you is the best of all ages. Yes, hold on a little longer. Give it your all. Once the fortune is in your hands, I will send you to heaven in one step. Brother, this drop of true dew is condensed from the origin of reincarnation. It has the power to create reincarnation and regenerate vitality. You should have it. Bai Ling opened her palm and revealed a drop of golden spiritual dew. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly at this moment. He seemed to have guessed something. If Bai Ling consumed this drop of true dew, she might be able to awaken her memories and achieve the ancient divine power. Even Yang Yuan could use it to comprehend the true meaning of reincarnation and improve his cultivation. However, Ling Xiao had a bolder idea at this moment. Let's go. Ling Xiao took the 3 marks of reincarnation and true dew of reincarnation from Bai Ling. He stretched out his hand and took Yang Yuan, who was trapped in the blood moon boundary, with his hand. Then, he turned and walked out of the ancient palace. At this moment, he had already received Xiong Huan's message that he had captured Xia Jiming. When the 3 of them walked out of the underground palace, they saw Xia Jiming, who was bound by Sure Potion's spiritual energy, standing in the cave with a gloomy face. My lord, Xiong Huan and Sure Patian bowed. However, Xia Jiming's expression suddenly froze. Although she had never seen Ling Xiao before, she felt an indescribable immortal aura from this young man. In particular, his immortal face was as gentle as jade. It was unforgettable. But why did he capture me? The person in his hand is senior brother Yang Yuan? Plop. Ling Xiao casually threw Yang Yuan on the ground and walked to Xia Jiming. He reached out and lifted her chin. Shall we have a chat, Miss Xia? Who are you? Xia Jiming's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and she bit her red lips with her silver teeth. She was like a frightened rabbit, and her face was full of uneasiness. Xia Chun, who is he to you? From the moment Ling Xiao saw this young lady, he already had some guesses. They both had the same massacre Dao law and the same surname. Moreover, they looked similar. Even the cultivation techniques that they cultivated were the same. Moreover, this young lady was around 300 years old. Xia Chun had only ascended to the upper world for slightly more than 300 years before he died. Ling Xiao did not believe that the two of them were not related. Although Ling Xiao didn't know how Xia Chun, a mere god emperor, was able to kill the third successor of the Ghost Clan and establish the Killing God Palace. However, the secret behind all of this might be related to Xia Jiming's master. After all, Ling Xiao did not believe that Holy Girl Qi Luo and Emperor God Qin Yang did not understand the principle of eliminating the source of trouble. A servant protecting his master's bloodline. This was really touching. Xia Chun, I don't know him. Xia Jiming shook her head blankly. She did not know much about her past. The only thing she knew was that her parents had been killed by evil people. Her master had always urged her to cultivate so that she could take revenge one day. You don't know? It seems that your master is very careful. Ling Xiao nodded slightly. 300 years ago, Qin Yang and Qi Luo had joined forces to kill Xia Chun, who was at the peak of the Emperor God realm. Based on their current abilities, they had probably become venerables or even sages. The less Xia Jiming knew, the better it would be for her. You will know. Now, I will give you two choices. Either you die with him, or you open your soul's sea and become my servant. Chapter 10:27. What? Be your slave? Don't even think about it. Xia Jiming's face was pale. However, under the spiritual pressure of a saint, it would be difficult for her to even die, let alone struggle. If that's the case, then I will shatter his physical body and restrain his divine soul. Then I will burn it with spiritual fire. As for you, seeing Xia Jiming's resistance, Ling Xiao was not at all surprised. With his divine soul, it was not impossible for him to control Xia Jiming by force. However, she was the Lady of Destiny and had a mysterious master behind her. He had to be careful. I will dig out your Dan's sea and imprison your physical body. Then I will send you to the love tower of the lower realm for people to play with day and night. Ling Zhao's lips curled into a gentle smile. Xia Jiming's body suddenly trembled. Her beautiful eyes suddenly became misty. You are a demon. I will give you 3 breaths of time to consider. Ling Xiao lifted his foot and stepped on Yang Yuan's head. 1. What do you want? Yang Yuan and I have no parents. We have no background. To be honest, Xia Jiming's heart was more or less confused at this moment. With her and Yang Yuan's status, they had no enemies and no background. Why would it be played like this? It is precisely because you have no background that I plan to give him a great opportunity. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. The gentleness on his immortal face made Xia Jiming a little confused. Could it be that what he said was true? Otherwise, with her and Yang Yuan's strength and background, why would a Saint Realm servant spend so much effort on them? Then why do you want to take me as your slave? 2. Ling Zhao's eyes suddenly turned cold. He lifted his foot and was about to crush Yang Yuan's head. I do, Xia Jiming exclaimed. She leaned against the wall of the cave as if she was deflated. There was an indescribable humiliation on her pretty face. Open your soul sea. Ling Zhao's tone was indifferent, completely different from his previous appearance. Xia Jiming took a deep breath and opened her soul sea without hesitation. In other words, she had no other choice but to trust the young man in front of her. Buzz. As the soul light in Ling Zhao's eyes shone, Xia Jiming felt her soul sea tremble. An extremely strange feeling swept through her entire body. The spiritual energy that was originally binding her body immediately dissipated. Give these 3 seals to Yang Yuan after I leave. Remember, do as I say. Ling Xiao casually threw the 3 seals to Xia Jiming and turned to walk out of the cave. In the past, Ling Xiao didn't plant seals on the chosen ones because he wouldn't be able to attack their Dao hearts and steal their fortunes. But now, with the increase of his destiny forging points, he would be rewarded if he killed anyone below 10,000. In this way, people like Xia Jimeng could be killed at any time. Behind him, Xiong Huan, Shi Patian, and Bai Ling followed closely. In the past, Bai Ling would definitely be puzzled by Ling Zhao's actions. But now, those who obey me will live, and those who defy me will die. Wasn't this the truth of the immortal path? The three of you go back to the realm first. Ling Xiao waved his hand and put the three of them into the realm. However, he wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he hid in the void and looked in the direction of the cave. With a soft moan, Yang Yuan, who was lying limp on the ground, suddenly squirmed and opened his eyes in a daze. "Where am I? Brother Yang, you're awake?" Xia Jimeng sighed softly, but there was a gentle smile on her face. Junior sister Xiao? Why are you here?" Hiss! Yang Yuan was stunned. Then, he felt a sharp pain on his face and body. "What's going on? Why am I in the cave?" "I'm not sure. When I came, you were already here. But, junior brother, a senior gave me these 3 stones before he left. He told me to give them to you." Xia Jimeng stretched out her hand and handed the 3 reincarnation marks to Yang Yuan. "Reincarnation marks? 3? Yang Yuan's eyes widened. Suddenly, a look of ecstasy appeared on his face. It turned out that he had unknowingly passed that senior's test. Would these 3 marks be able to completely uncover the secret of the reincarnation divine palace? Beep. The child of destiny is thinking of Peach. You have perfectly taken on the role of the treasure-seeking mouse. Congratulations to the host for plundering 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. As Yang Yuan held the 3 marks in his hand, a ray of golden light bloomed leisurely. Vaguely, there seemed to be a divine shadow stepping on the void and descending from the 9 heavens. It stretched out a finger and gently tapped on Yang Yuan's forehead. Vast spiritual light instantly fluctuated. Outside Yang Yuan's body, there seemed to be Tao will that evolved, and divine power rose together. Even the bewilderment on his face had actually silently vanished at this moment, and it transformed into a wisp of shock and terror. At this time, he seemed to have understood under the divine shadow's finger. A look of determination gradually appeared in his eyes. "I see." When the divine shadow dissipated and the divine light disappeared, Yang Yuan took a deep breath and looked up at the distant sky. "Senior brother Yang, what was that celestial shadow just now? What do you know?" With Xia Jiming's temperament, she naturally would not interfere in such matters. But now, her divine soul was controlled by Ling Xiao. Everything she did and said was based on Ling Xiao's thoughts. "Junior sister Xia, this divine shadow is the remnant soul of a senior in the reincarnation heavenly palace. He guided me to a secret place to receive the inheritance of the heavenly palace." Also, it turns out that everyone was wrong. The reincarnation heavenly palace is not a sect. Yang Yuan, of course, did not guard against Xia Jimeng at all. If it were not for this junior sister, he might have died in the hands of others. Not a single sect. Xia Jimeng's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, but Yang Yuan nodded silently. "I can't explain it clearly, but if you're interested, we can go and find the location of this heavenly palace together." Just as Yang Yuan looked at Xia Jimeng with anticipation, the mark on his hand buzzed again. The reincarnation heavenly palace is unique in the 9 heavens. If you want to obtain its inheritance, you need to cultivate a technique that can break the restrictions of the heavenly palace. An ancient and vast voice suddenly came from the imprint. At this moment, Yang Yuan could see that there seemed to be a vague figure sitting cross-legged in the void in front of him. It was the back of a figure dressed in black. Although he could not see the figure's appearance clearly, he did not emit any aura. However, there were countless illusory figures of immortals and demons kneeling and bowing their heads around him. Ancient mountains formed a river, and divine trees formed a sea. There were immortal birds and great demons at his feet, and the stars, sun, and moon sank because of him. He was ancient, mysterious, and unique in the world. In fact, compared to the immortal who guided the way just now, The back of this black-clad figure in front of him was even more awe-inspiring. It was a kind of power that surpassed the 9 heavens and immortal reincarnation. Senior. Yang Yuan's expression was sincere. He suddenly knelt on the ground and kowtowed deeply. However, Xia Zhimeng, who was beside him, frowned. For some reason, she felt that this figure was somewhat familiar. Chapter 1028. Those who chant my true name will see eternal life in the cycle of reincarnation. Ling Xiao sat cross-legged in the air, his voice hoarse. This soul shadow was something he had placed in the mark of reincarnation just now. His goal was naturally to lure Yang Yuan to the Daotian Academy. Judging from this leak's providence, he would not die easily. Moreover, with Xia Zhimeng by his side, he only needed to lure her master into the trap to save Yang Yuan's life. If not, Ling Xiao would go with him and save him at the crucial moment. This treasure-seeking mouse would then embark on a new path of no return. After all, Ling Xiao had to get the Sky Demon's remains. Since the reincarnation heavenly palace had not been opened, Yang Yuan would most likely not die with the heavenly Tao's protection. Eternal life? Senior, you're so mighty that Yang Yuan is terrified. Yang Yuan did not have a trace of doubt at all. The immortal aura contained in this immortal shadow was not something he, who had just entered the venerable realm, could understand. In fact, he could feel that the heavenly Tao's order in the cave had changed with the arrival of this soul shadow. Time stopped, and space returned to nothing. There was a chaotic aura of the great Tao hidden in the darkness, replacing the light. Go! The opportunity to open the reincarnation heavenly palace is on the 3rd floor of the Daotian Academy's library, 4th row, 5th block, 6th column. Get it and the mark, and you can open the door to the heavenly palace. However, the Daotian Academy is full of danger. Those who are not determined cannot go there. Whether you can get this opportunity depends on your own luck. Ling Xiao sighed slightly. It's been 100,000 years. I hope you won't disappoint me. I will not disappoint, Senior. I will make the true name of the reincarnation heavenly palace appear again. Yang Yuan kowtowed 3 times. When he looked up again, the immortal shadow had disappeared. I still don't know Senior's name. Senior, please. My name is Daddy Xiao. Those who chant my true name shall obtain eternal life. The ethereal voice of the great Tao resounded from the blue sky, and a trace of reverence appeared on Yang Yuan's face. Xiao Dai? Is that Senior's name? Senior Xiao Dai, don't worry. Once Yang Yuan finds the opportunity to obtain that divine ability from the Daotian Academy, he will definitely praise your true name and comfort you for your 100,000 years of planning. Beep, the child of destiny calls the devil his father. Congratulations to host for plundering 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. Hearing the notification from the system, a smile appeared on Ling Xiao's face. In order to see immortality in the samsara, you have to enter the samsara first. After all, with Xia Zhimeng by Yang Yuan's side, it would be difficult for this leak to escape. Next, he only needed to quietly wait for Manor Lord Daotian to begin his lecture. Then, he would be able to start a new game. However, before that, Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at the dissipating demonic corpse Qi in the center of the mystic realm. His figure suddenly disappeared. What? You asked me, what is in the Daotian Academy's Sutra Depository? How would I know? I have never been there. Brother Yang. In the cave, Xia Zhimeng looked bitterly at the ecstatic Yang Yuan in front of her. Her lips trembled slightly, but she could not say a word. Junior sister Xia. Cough, cough. I've made a fool of myself. Yang Yuan's expression turned solemn as he smiled at Xia Zhimeng. Junior sister, what's with your expression? Can't you see that I'm going to be rich? 2 immortal figures descended. One gave blessings, and the other showed the way. Who in the world could have such a fortuitous encounter? I, Yang Yuan, said that I will never ask you to shed a single drop of blood for me again. At the Reincarnation River, at the Nirvana River, as long as I am there, you will be immortal. Senior brother, you want to go to the Daotian Academy? Xia Jiming sighed softly. Soul light flickered in her eyes. Yang Yuan nodded slightly. Although it's very dangerous, I must find the reincarnation heavenly palace. Junior sister, you don't have to follow me into this muddy water. Don't worry. When I find the true meaning of reincarnation, I will definitely be immortal with you. Although, with Yang Yuan's background and identity, once he provoked this top sect in the Azure continent, it would be difficult for him to move forward, and he would end up being the enemy of the whole world. However, riches and honor were found in danger. He just wanted to borrow the classic from the Daotian Academy. Couldn't he just return it after using it? Senior brother, let me go with you. Xia Jiming's expression had calmed down again. After all, she did not know what Ling Xiao wanted to do. However, the power of heaven and earth contained in the first celestial shadow terrified even her. Since Master said that Yang Yuan was blessed with providence, perhaps there was still a chance to turn things around. What? Junior sister Xia, you could be. Yang Yuan suddenly felt a little uneasy. Even the way he looked at Xia Jiming became a lot more nervous. This could be considered as a subtle confession, right? Even if the road ahead is difficult and dangerous, I am willing to go through it with you. Junior sister, I understand. All right, Brother Yang, there are less than 100 days before the prefecture master's lecture. Let's go together. Now that we can finally go down the mountain, let's enjoy the scenery along the way. Xia Jiming did not know how many times she had sighed at her heart. Originally, Ling Xiao did not appear. At this time, she also felt that although Yang Yuan looked ordinary, he was tenacious and kind. Chapter 1029. Song Ning, the young master of the Heavenly Wolf clan. A demonic wind howled in the ancient forest. The blue phoenix flapped its wings and blocked the demonic aura. At this moment, the expressions of many disciples from the large clans and immortal sects froze, especially when they saw the handsome young man in a silver robe in front of the crowd. Their eyes flashed with a hint of fear. The Silver Moon Heavenly Wolf clan was the overlord of the demon territory. It was said that their ancestors had fought against the gods. Song Ning was not as famous as Gu Chao Ci because he was not a human and was not in the sequence. Many human clan geniuses who had been to the demon realm had even said that in terms of combat strength, the top geniuses of the four extremes were enough to crush the 10 sequences of the human clan. However, given Master Ling Zhao's temperament, if Song Ning dared to hurt the Empress, would he be able to return to the demon territory in one piece? Gu Chao Ci, I know you. Don't think you can be arrogant in front of me, just because you have the support of the Ling people. Song Ning's expression was cold. He did not take Gu Chao Ci seriously at all. The Silver Moon Heavenly Wolf clan could not be compared to the Ling people in terms of resources. However, the Realm Master was missing and the 10 demon lords were conspiring. Even the Ling people did not dare to fight against the entire extreme south. Even if Ling Xiao was here, he would have to hide in the distance. Now that all the human prodigies were gathered here, it seemed that Song Sun and the rest had been killed. Once he obtained the fortune in the ancient palace, he would definitely ask this group of human ants who had the guts to make an enemy out of the Heavenly Wolf clan. If you know what's good for you, get out of my way. Otherwise, Song Ning snorted coldly. But before he could finish, Gu Chaozi raised her hand. It shone with a dazzling light. It was a shocking sight. The shadow of a blue phoenix suddenly appeared and fell towards the 7 prodigies of the Heavenly Wolf clan. On the mountain path, many people's faces changed again. Apparently, they did not expect Gu Chao Ci to take the initiative to fight against the geniuses of the 7 major demon tribes. An ear-piercing buzzing sound suddenly rang out. Above the ancient figure of the blue phoenix, there seemed to be endless sword light sprinkling down, wanting to destroy the blue sky. The aura of the primordial great Tao awakened and enveloped the entire barren mountain. As expected of praising the Empress, such domineering behavior is worthy of raising the prestige of the human race. It's just a few wolf beasts. How dare you make a ruckus in the human territory? Seeing Gu Chao Ci make a move, the human clan pride cheered. You're courting death. Song Ning's face sank. Suddenly, an expert from the Sirius clan took a step forward and said arrogantly, in the eyes of my demon clan, the 10 sequences are nothing but a joke. There's no need for our young master to kill you. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly roared towards the sky, and his entire body rose steadily. In a short instant, he'd already reached a height of 30 m, and the silver fur on his body was like sharp needles that flickered with a cold brilliance that caused one's heart to palpitate. He was actually a half-saint demon. Then, he reached out with both hands, wanting to grab the blue phoenix's wings in his hands. At that moment, the blue phoenix flapped its wings, and countless green feathers drifted down. Like sharp swords, they cut through the sky and enveloped the Sirius clan genius. Splat! In a breath's time, the Sirius clan genius's body was cut into countless bloody wounds that exposed his bones. As his blood splattered, a strong smell of blood filled the air. Gu Chao Ci, how dare you kill a member of the Sirius clan? I'll destroy your Gu clan. Song Ning shouted sternly, but suddenly, a sneer came from the forest in the distance. If you dare to touch her, I'll destroy the 10 extreme southern clans. Hearing the voice, everyone's expression changed. They turned around and looked in the direction of the voice. They saw a black-robed figure slowly walking over from the barren mountain and ancient forest. Behind him, Xinyuan Weiyang and Yi Qingchan followed closely like maidservants, making others envious. At that moment, Ling Zhao's 2 Dao bodies had already returned to the realm. In order to avoid Li Zichu's suspicions, he had arrived a little later. He did not expect Song Ning to be so pretentious. How dare you? Young man, are you threatening me? Song Ning's bloodshot eyes stared fixedly at Ling Xiao. Although he could not sense the young man's aura, he was inexplicably afraid. However, Ling Xiao did not respond at all. He walked slowly to Gu Chao Ci and smiled gently. Leave it to me, my wife. Oh, Gu Chao Ci's face was cold, especially when she saw Yi Qingchan. Her eyes flashed coldly. However, this time, she did not hesitate at all. She turned around and walked into the crowd. Fighting was really too tiring. If it affected the baby, the gains would not make up for the losses. The ancient clan prodigies who were originally standing on both sides of the mountain path immediately scattered and stayed 10 feet away from her. How could I not dodge? Ji, one first, and then Shi Haoyan. Anyone who dared to covet the Empress was beaten to death by Master Ling Xiao. Who in the world would not covet the Empress's beauty? But who would dare to covet it? My wife, you are the young master of the Ling people? Although Song Ning did not often come to the human territory, Ling Zhao's name was known to all. Moreover, whether it was severely injuring the sky demon or killing Jiying, he had caused a storm in the entire realm. Even ordinary small sects and clans knew that once the young master was angry, no one would forgive him. What did you just say? Ling Xiao put his hands behind his back and looked calmly at the 7 Sky Wolf tribe cultivators in front of him. Among the 7, 2 of them were more than 1,000 years old and were at the peak of the Exalt realm. The most powerful of them was the half-sage who had been injured by Gu Chao Ci. The remaining few were at the 6th or 7th stage of the Exalt realm, but they were more than 500 years old. Unfortunately, only Song Ning had 4,000 Providence points among the 7 of them. However, if it was a year ago, Ling Xiao would have had to put in a lot of effort to obtain 4,000 Providence points. But now it was just 1 sword strike. How dare you? You. Not this sentence. The sentence before that. Ling Xiao shook his head slightly. Song Ning's face was filled with confusion. After thinking for a while, he said coldly, I want to destroy the Gu clan. How dare you demons cause trouble in the Azure continent? If I don't kill you today, it will prove that the human race has no guts. Ling Xiao suddenly shouted angrily, his voice shaking the heavens. Before Song Ning could recover from a shock, he saw the young man unsheath an ancient sword in his hand and slash at the 7 of them. Master Ling Xiao. On the mountain path, Everyone's expression changed, and they became solemn. What was supposed to be a simple show of strength suddenly changed its meaning. That's right. The demon race was so arrogant that they wanted to monopolize this mystic realm's fortune. Praising the Empress for attacking them in anger, they were threatened by these silver wolves. If it wasn't for Master Ling Xiao today, who would be able to restore the human race's prestige? Master Ling Xiao, you are so righteous that you are unparalleled in the world. Between heaven and earth, there was a sudden sword cry that spread for 90,000 miles. Thousands of rays of light shone, and divine splendor danced. An extreme aura of the great Tao surged. Immortals and Buddhas could not stop it, and the world became empty. Chapter 10:30. Human, how arrogant! Song Ming clenched his teeth. His eyes were filled with shock. At this moment, he could feel that this young man was planning to kill all 7 of them with one strike. How arrogant! How ridiculous! How could a young man with a bone structure in his early 20s be a match for the 7 of them, even if he had the support of the Ling people? In Song Ming's opinion, a half-sage could easily crush this young master of the Ling people. No matter how strong he was not in the sequence. And Gu Chao Ci was one of the 10 sequences in the current world. You don't know what's good for you. Boom! Around the 7 of them, demonic light shot up into the sky like a sea of blood, covering the sky. Tens of thousands of demonic patterns formed layer by layer. The power of the 7 heavenly wolf tribe elites gathered in one place. It was shocking. However, just as the 7 demonic palms struck out towards the sword that filled the sky with a force that could crush the void, extreme fear appeared on everyone's faces in the next moment. At this moment, the 7 demonic palm prints were neatly broken down the moment they touched the sword light. The original wisp of light suddenly turned into runes that filled the sky. It was like the sun in the west or a meteor falling from the sky, erupting with a terrifying power. Boom! The entire barren mountain suddenly shattered. 6 of the 7 heavenly wolf silhouettes were shattered in front of everyone's shocked eyes. Blood mist rose and dyed the blue sky red. Only Tsang Ning stepped on the ground and fled hundreds of feet away. Heaven and earth were silent. Everyone stared blankly at the black-clothed figure above their heads. Then they looked down at the corpses that were cut into hundreds of pieces and swallowed hard. The young master of the Ling people was peerless. This was common knowledge in Qing Tsang. But today it was not just peerless. This King peerless. With one strike, he killed 6 heavenly wolf tribe elites. One of them was even a half-sage. Although Tsang Ning was lucky to escape with his life, but how could he compete with Master Ling Xiao? Ling Xiao. Tsang Ning stood on a distant mountain with a shocked expression. However, in the blink of an eye, he revealed an almost maniacal smile. I admit that I underestimated you. Congratulations, you've successfully angered me. Young Master Tsang Ning, are you still trying to act tough here? Someone from the human race sneered, causing the crowd to burst into laughter. But at that moment, Tsang Ning suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky above him. Then, blood chi began to rise around him. Roar! A blood moon abruptly appeared in the sky. Gu Chao Ci's expression froze slightly as she whispered, "It's the forbidden ancient bloodline of the Silver Moon Heavenly Wolf clan, the Blood Moon Heavenly Wolf." When he heard that, Ling Zhao's lips curled up. Bloody Moon Wolf? Was this the origin of Tsang Ning's luck? Roar! At the peak of the mountain, demonic chi was everywhere. The ocean-like blood chi transformed into an evil mist and completely covered Tsang Ning's figure. At this moment, everyone only felt a chill rising from the soles of their feet. All they could see was the color of blood. What a terrifying demonic chi, as expected of the Wolf King. This time, Lord Ling Xiao is in trouble. At the foot of the mountain, Li Zichu's figure swept across the sky. At this moment, a look of surprise appeared on her pretty face. In particular, when she saw the black-robed figure standing proudly in the sky, a look of worry flashed in her beautiful eyes. Her master had just gone through a great battle and suffered serious injuries from the Saint State zombie demon. Would it be dangerous for him to fight again? Ling Xiao, suffer the wrath of the Heavenly Wolf clan. Suddenly, a low and oppressive voice came from the blood mist in the sky. Song Ning's figure slowly walked out. Countless blood runes appeared on his extremely pale face. Strange and demonic. Together with the blood moon above his head, it emitted an extremely evil aura. Layers of blood mist swirled around him as demonic runes burst forth. The terrifying aura had already reached its peak. Boom! Then, everyone only saw a blood shadow streaking across the sky and pouncing toward Ling Xiao angrily. Vast demonic qi swept across the sky, and Song Ning's figure finally appeared in front of Ling Xiao. Die! Song Ning's palms suddenly pressed out, carrying a vast sea of blood, fiercely toward Ling Xiao's chest. However, at this moment, Ling Xiao's face did not have a trace of panic. He just calmly reached out and collided with Song Ning's palm. Boom! The void shattered, and the light was blinding. Before the savagery on Song Ning's face disappeared, it completely froze. Crack! At this moment, he could feel that his entire arm had shattered under the young man's palm. Whoosh! Even before the people on the mountain path could react, Song Ning's figure had turned into a stream of light and shot out, falling miserably on the mountain peak. Smoke and dust filled the air, and the mountain rocks collapsed. Everyone's mouths were wide open, and their faces were filled with shock. What happened to the fury of the Heavenly Wolf clan? That's it. Roar! Before the crowd could react, another angry wolf howl came from the smoke. The sky shattered, and even the blood moon in the sky cracked, transforming into tens of thousands of divine elephants, instantly enveloping Song Ning's figure. At this moment, Song Ning's aura was rising rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing this, Ling Xiao slightly shook his head. Immortal light bloomed around him, and the sun, the moon, the sea of stars, the divine trees, the rivers, and all kinds of mysterious scenes rose under his feet. Transcendent, calm, and indifferent, he gave people a kind of eternal and invincible aura. The demon clan should obediently curl up in the extreme south. You don't have to go back to the human clan to behave atrociously. As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao pressed his palm gently. Hundreds of millions of Tao patterns appeared in the center of his palm, and ancient suns sank, and the sea of stars shattered. Ling Xiao, I will kill you. Song Ning's expression changed greatly. Just when everyone thought that the Wolf King was going to fight to the death, he suddenly turned around and rushed madly toward the ancient palace behind him. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed, but a trace of gentleness appeared on his face. If he wanted to kill Song Ning now, it would be just a matter of waving his hand. However, not only did Song Ning not run for his life, but he also rushed toward the ancient palace ruins. It seemed that there was really something in the palace that Song Ning could not give up. A treasure-hunting dog? Looking at the corpse aura in the ancient palace, it was obvious that the one who died in the palace was also a supreme being expert. Song Ning had said that this place was left behind by his ancestor. In this case, you take care of the supreme being ancestor, and I will take care of you. It will save us a lot of trouble. Ling Xiao calmly looked at the figure that disappeared in the ancient palace. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked at the people on the mountain path. Everyone, it seems that this ancient palace does contain some treasures. I will go after Song Ning, and you can enter the palace to search for treasures. As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao secretly winked at Yi Qing Chan, and his figure instantly disappeared. Young lord, you mean you want to share the treasures in this ancient palace with us? Not only that, young lord wants to kill Song Ning so that we can search for treasures in peace. Righteousness. Master Ling Xiao, I am willing to call you the light of the human clan. Chapter 1031. Young Master Ling Xiao, that's how you are? You always think for others, and you spare no effort for the common people. Li Zichu clenched her fists in front of the ancient palace. She was in awe. What awe-inspiring righteousness! What Tao of nature! Now that I've met young master, I know what the righteousness of the world is. You've surpassed thousands of classics. Everyone, Lord Ling Xiao, and I encountered the Sky Demon's vassal just now. Please be careful when you enter the palace. Li Zichu took a deep breath and shouted softly. However, the expressions of many geniuses around her changed. No wonder Lord Ling Xiao's aura was weak. He had just experienced a fierce battle. Otherwise, how could Song Ning escape from young master? Young master, you're righteous. Advance with injuries, intimidate the fiendish demons, and carry the hope of humanity. Many geniuses' eyes were filled with tears. Looking at the back of the black-clothed figure that was gradually disappearing, there was only endless reverence left in his heart. Lord Ling Xiao, the human race will prosper with you. Let's go. Yi Qingchan's smile was gentle, but she sneered in her heart. She had seen the end of the people in front of her from young master's eyes. As for Li Zichu, she was just a pawn that young master had set up in advance. Boom! In an instant, spiritual light shone from all over the mountain. Countless figures flew into the sky and rushed toward the ancient palace. Lin Yuan, Gu Yu, and the other successors of major sects were especially looking forward to it. A good fortune that could make the heavenly wolf young master risk his life for? Just thinking about it made one a little excited. Over here, Ling Zhao's figure appeared in the ancient palace. He was immediately surrounded by a terrifying corpse qi. He could feel that Song Ning was right in front of him. However, under the cover of such a strong corpse qi, even with Ling Zhao's divine soul, he couldn't detect any spiritual fluctuations. No wonder Song Ning was unable to find the creation in the ancient palace. This corpse qi is enough to conceal all spiritual qi and immortal aura. Ling Zhao's expression was indifferent, but he was not in a hurry to kill Song Ning. Since the Wolf King dared to travel hundreds of millions of miles to search for treasures, he most likely knew the secret of this place. Moreover, do you think his job is just to be a treasure-hunting dog? Childish. It seemed as though the Samsara Devil Blade hadn't drunk blood for a very long time. The ancient race prodigies outside all had powerful cultivation bases. Although they did not have any providence, they were excellent nourishment for the demonic blade. However, when killing people, of course, they had to kill them until they shed tears of gratitude. This was what it meant to be ruthless. Otherwise, you see, from ancient times until now, how many of those merciless killers, even if they had supreme cultivation, would have a good ending? When the world praises my holy name, I shall send the world into endless reincarnation. Damn it! In the depths of the ancient palace, Song Ning had blood at the corner of his mouth. His eyes were filled with panic. Originally, in his eyes, the so-called sequence of the human race was nothing but a fleeting dog. There was nothing to be afraid of. However, he never dreamed that the young lord of the Ling people would have such a shocking talent. With Song Ning's current strength, he would definitely die if he continued to fight. However, if what his father said was right, the corpse of his ancestor was in this secret realm. When his ancestor died, the divine moonlight crystal, the inherited spiritual treasure of the Sirius clan, also went missing. When the divine moonlight crystal fused with one's body, one could sense the great Tao of heaven and earth. As long as he could obtain the divine moonlight crystal, he would be able to cultivate the blood moon meridian to the extreme. Wouldn't he be able to kill a young venerable realm cultivator easily? Oomph. Ling Xiao, just you wait. Revenge doesn't need 30 years. Today, I will kill you in front of everyone after obtaining the divine moonlight crystal. Bloodline sensing. Bloodline sensing. Song Ning closed his eyes and focused. The blood moon hung high above his head. At a certain moment, his eyes suddenly opened. There was joy in the depths of his eyes. Found it! Ha 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 ha! As expected, the heavens are on my side. Song Ning sneered and turned to look at the entrance of the hall. Seeing that Ling Xiao didn't seem to be chasing after him, he took a step forward and rushed forward. Have you found it? Ling Xiao smiled and followed Song Ning into the depths of the hall. As they went deeper and deeper, Ling Xiao found that although the ancient hall was dilapidated, its scale could be said to be huge. It seemed that in ancient times, this was the inheritance hall of the supreme expert of the reincarnation heavenly abode. When Song Ning's figure suddenly stopped in the distance, Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at the pitch-black stone door in front of him. His eyes suddenly focused. At this moment, he could feel that the stone door seemed to contain an extremely terrifying corpse chi. Obviously, this should be the fortune that Song Ning mentioned. However, even with Ling Xiao's divine soul perception, he still couldn't detect any fluctuations in it. If Song Ning didn't lead the way, it would have taken him a long time to find this place. Buzz! However, the moment Song Ning raised his hand and touched the stone door, the world in front of him suddenly fell into endless darkness. Above his head, a black moon hung in the sky, giving off an indescribably strange and oppressive aura. Song Ning's expression froze and then turned into a look of intense shock. Could it be that this was the divine moonlight crystal that Royal Father was talking about? But this can't be right. I haven't even stepped into the stone hall. How can this treasure manifest on its own? Or is this a trick set up by the reincarnation heavenly abode expert? Clang, 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 clang. In the Azure realm, the bell rang again. Countless ancient and powerful figures stood in the clouds, their brows tightly knitted. This was the third time the ancient bell of the immortal demon had rung in the past few days. It seemed that Master Ling Zhao's prediction was right. As long as the experts didn't appear, the sky demon was really getting more and more unscrupulous. Be careful. That demon may be hiding in this ancient hall. We'd better move together. Oh no, Master Ling Xiao is in danger. I don't want the fortune anymore. I want to save the young master. It must be Song Ning. He purposely lured the young master here. Perhaps he has already colluded with that demon. I suggest that we seal the hall door. We can't give that demon and Song Ning a chance to escape. Instantly, waves of exclamations of shock and indignation came from all around the ancient palace. Everyone's expression darkened. Under Yi Qingchan's guidance, they gathered together and walked into the depths of the ancient hall. At this time, Ling Xiao walked out of the void in front of the stone door. He glanced indifferently at the dazed Song Ning and walked into the stone hall. Ordinary exalted realm experts couldn't resist the blood moon forbidden zone when he used his saint realm spirit. However, with the ancient bell of the immortal demon restraining him, he couldn't use it casually. It seemed that he had to think of a way to get rid of the young master of the Realm Lord Palace. Boom! A sea of corpse chi surged toward him. Even with Ling Zhao's mental fortitude, he still felt a trace of pressure from the sea of corpses. Dazzling lightning suddenly bloomed around him, blocking the corpse chi in front of him and illuminating the entire ancient hall. In the next moment, Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed and a sincere smile appeared on his face. At this time, he saw a pitch-black ancient coffin standing quietly in the center of the hall. The source of the corpse chi in front of him was in the ancient coffin. Chapter 1032. The Remains of a Heavenly Sovereign. Ling Xiao stepped forward and stopped in front of the black coffin. There were countless ancient and complicated inscriptions carved around the coffin lid. For iron chains as thick as an arm bound the coffin, as if they were afraid that the corpse within would escape. Interesting. It seems that the sovereign of the Reincarnation Palace was severely injured in the fight with this demon venerable, and then died. In ancient times, thousands of clans went on expeditions. The fall of a heavenly sovereign was not as rare as it was today. Judging from the layout of the ruins, it might be the location of a sect. The sovereign of the Reincarnation Palace sealed the demon venerable here to attract the attention of the world, so that he could pass on his inheritance to the fated person. It was a pity that the heavenly sovereign's plan seemed to have fallen through. Ling Xiao had obtained the reincarnation due and the divine reincarnation scripture. If not for Yang Yuan's mission, he would be a dead man now. As for the fortune in the ancient palace, a black demonic blade suddenly appeared in Ling Xiao's hand, and he slashed at the iron chains. After the corrosion of countless years, the divine aura within the chain had long since disappeared. Therefore, Ling Xiao did not spend too much effort to break the 4 iron chains. Then he inserted the demonic blade into the coffin lid and lifted it up. Boom! A vast corpse aura instantly gushed out. And what surprised Ling Xiao was that the corpse aura in the coffin was inexplicably mixed with an extremely terrifying fluctuation of vitality. Ling Xiao frowned and walked to the front of the black coffin, only to see that there were no more corpses in the coffin. There were only 2 pearls of the same size, but different colors. One of the pearls was crystal clear and shone like jade. It was the origin of vitality. The other pearl was pitch black and had endless corpse aura. It was the origin of death. The 2 pearls each occupied a corner, and life and death alternated, evolving into endless mysteries. The heavenly sovereign's physical body and blood soul actually condensed into a corpse pearl. Ling Xiao's eyes were filled with surprise, but he suddenly heard hurried footsteps coming from afar. His eyes immediately focused, and he waved his hand to put the 2 pearls into his bag. The corners of his mouth suddenly curled up into a smile. With a thought, the corpse puppet refined by the ancestor of the Foliaceae appeared in the black coffin. At this time, this ancestor of the Foliaceae had already been meticulously modified by the Phoenix Rouge, and there was not a single trace of it on the surface. Ling Xiao waved his hand and placed the corpse pearl into the corpse puppet's mouth. He then closed the coffin lid and turned to look at Song Ning. Buzz! The black moon dissipated, and a touch of clarity suddenly appeared between heaven and earth. However, before a smile could appear on Song Ning's face, he was shocked to see that the stone door in front of him had actually opened by itself. The moment he stepped into the ancient hall, he clearly saw Ling Xiao wave his hand and push open the coffin lid. Then, his body abruptly withdrew dozens of feet. Ling Xiao. Above the void, there was a sudden fluctuation, but it quickly dissipated without a trace. Even so, a trace of coldness appeared in Ling Xiao's eyes. It was obvious that there was another uninvited guest in this ancient hall. Even if this person's aura was concealed by a spiritual item, Ling Xiao could still feel a trace of throbbing from the spiritual fire. However, throughout the entire mystic realm, it was impossible for someone who had comprehended the Flame Dao law or integrated with the spiritual fire to escape Ling Xiao's perception. Who exactly was this person? You? How'd you find this place? Song Ning's face was already as gloomy as water. At this time, he could feel that there seemed to be an extremely terrifying fluctuation coming from the black stone coffin. Song Ning, let's see where you can escape to this time. Ling Xiao sneered and suddenly swept out. He held the ancient sword in his hand horizontally, wanting to kill the Wolf King in front of his eyes. No! Song Ning's expression changed, and he staggered backward. Blood-red demon aura surged around him. Even so, in front of Ling Xiao, he had already lost the courage to resist. Seeing that the ancient sword was about to slash down, Song Ning's eyes were filled with unwillingness and despair. Buzz! Right at this moment, suddenly, a loud buzzing sound came from the black coffin in the distance. Then, the entire black coffin suddenly exploded, and a demonic figure surrounded by corpse aura stepped out and stood in front of Song Ning. He stretched out his hand and directly crushed the sword radiance that filled the sky. At this moment, not only Song Ning, but also Ling Xiao's expression quietly froze. What is this? This is ancestor. Song Ning swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Although he could only see a back view, the excitement in his eyes could not be concealed. Could it be that the remnant soul of ancestor sensed the bloodline connection and took the initiative to protect him? But Father did not seem to have mentioned that ancestor had a black blade in his hand. To be able to crush Ling Xiao's sword essence so casually, the corpse in front of him must have reached an extremely terrifying level when he was alive. If so, who else could it be other than ancestor? At this moment, Song Ning did not know what had just happened. It was as if his physical body and soul had been pulled into a mysterious space by an inexplicable force. But who cares? With ancestors' protection, who in this mystery land could defeat him? This aura, supreme demonic corpse? Ling Xiao was shocked. Without hesitation, he turned around and rushed out of the main hall. At this moment, he could feel that the countless geniuses of the ancient clans and immortal sects were not far away. The game had officially begun. Ancestor, can you help me kill this person? Song Ning tried to communicate with the demonic corpse in front of him, but the corpse stepped out and really chased after Ling Xiao. Damn it. Awesome. I told you that I, Song Ning, am the chosen one. Otherwise, how could there be a turning point every time I am in a desperate situation? Ha! Ha 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 ha! God is helping me. Ling Xiao, I will kill you today. Song Ning laughed wildly. Just as he was about to follow, he suddenly thought of something. He walked to the broken black coffin and searched for it for a long time, but found nothing. Damn it! Could have been taken by Ling Xiao. Song Ning shouted angrily. Without hesitation, he chased after Ling Xiao. Until there was no more movement in the main hall. Only then did a figure slowly appear in the void. A girl in a golden feather dress appeared out of thin air. Her eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Could it be that the fortune in this hall has been taken by young Master Ling people? Otherwise, why would Song Ning be so flustered and exasperated? The girl pondered for a moment, then sighed softly. With Ling Xiao's status, even if she had 10,000 guts, she would not dare to take the treasure from him. However, the information she received could not be wrong. The sacred item must be in this secret realm. Therefore, she could only take one step at a time. If Song Ning could kill Ling Xiao, perhaps she could take advantage of the chaos to plot something. After all, she was hiding in the dark and no one would notice. However, if Ling Xiao escaped, she could only make a deal with this young master of the Ling people. It was said that although this young master of the Ling people was infatuated with the Empress, he was accompanied by many beauties when he went out. Man, how push. Push. Chapter 1033. Ling Xiao, let's see where you can run to. Suddenly, an arrogant shout came from the ancient palace. The roaring corpse aura in the palace started to gather in the distance. Ling Xiao's figure flashed out like a graceful swan. Just as he was about to step out of the ancient palace, he bumped into the group of Qing Song geniuses who were rushing over. Go! Go! Ling Xiao roared angrily, his expression anxious. At that moment, the void in front of everyone suddenly rippled. Then, a figure surrounded by corpse aura descended from the sky and blocked everyone's path. Damn it! Ling Xiao took a deep breath and clenched his fists. His eyes were filled with fear. Lord Ling Xiao, young master, what happened? Lin Yuan, Gu Yu, Li Jichu, and the others gathered around Ling Xiao. Their faces were filled with surprise. At this moment, although they were unable to sense the demonic corpse's cultivation level, the terrifying corpse chi and the panic on Ling Xiao's face caused them to feel an enormous pressure. It's the corpse of the Celestial Wolf clan's supreme being expert. There seems to be a trace of his soul remaining. Ling Xiao's tone was grave. Song Ning's figure descended from the sky. The divine talisman in his hand appeared and enveloped the entire palace. Ha ha, run. Why don't you run? Song Ning's Taoist heart had been shattered by Ling Xiao. Now that he finally had a chance to turn the tables, he was filled with a ferocious aura. His demonic nature was completely exposed at this moment. What? Supreme demonic corpse realm. Hearing that, everyone's faces changed, especially when they saw the radiant glow ancient world above their heads. Their eyes were filled with horror. It felt like they were going to die. And all of you, weren't you laughing so happily just now? Why aren't you laughing anymore? Cry, I want all of you to cry. Song Ning's eyes were gloomy. There seemed to be a scarlet flicker in them. He waved his hand. Ancestor, kill. Don't let any of them go. Boom! The boundless supreme aura descended. Just this aura alone was enough to cause countless geniuses of the ancient race present to spit out blood and collapse onto the ground. Their auras withered instantly. The fighting spirit in everyone's eyes was completely extinguished the moment the corpse demon's sovereign appeared. Although the sky demon was feared by the nine heavens, he had still been forced to retreat by everyone in the rocky cliff ancient city. Now that Li Zichu, Lin Yuan, and the other evildoers from the Azure Sky Empire had arrived, and with Empress Gu and young Master Ling controlling the situation, they might be able to kill him. However, Supreme Corpse Devil, woo 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 woo, I don't want to die. I want to go home. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. My ancestors have demonic veins. Young Master Song Ning, I didn't mean to insult you just now. It's all their fault. I'm a human demon. Please give me a chance. Boom. However, before everyone could finish speaking, the corpse demon suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already in the crowd. In its hand, a demonic blade was wrapped in black light. Every time it swung down, a head would roll. However, what was terrifying was that no one who was killed by the corpse demon had shed a single drop of blood. This is a demonic creature. It's the sky demon's doing. Song Ning is indeed in cahoots with that demon. Li Zichu's face turned cold as she shouted. Before coming, she had investigated in detail the scene of the sky demon's birth. It was said that on that day, the direct descendants of the Foliaceae were all slaughtered. However, none of the corpses shed a single drop of blood. This behavior was terrifying, but it also proved how terrifying this demon was. Sky demon? Song Ning stood in front of the crowd, looking a little confused. When did I collude with the sky demon? Hypocritical humans. How dare you accuse me when you're about to die? Kill. Kill them all. Young master, what should we do? Li Zichu looked worried. Unknowingly, she had begun to rely on Ling Xiao. This array was set up by Song Ning. If we want to break it, I'm afraid we have to kill him first. Moreover, this corpse demon belongs to the Celestial Wolf clan. Perhaps it's under Song Ning's control. Ling Xiao frowned as he pondered. Seeing the countless young geniuses being killed by the demonic blade, a look of pain appeared on his face. Young master, you mean? Lin Yuan and the others seemed to have sensed something and looked at Ling Xiao in surprise. Young Master Lin, Prince Guyu, help me block this corpse demon for a moment. My wife, Qing Chan, and Wei Yong, you three work together to help senior sister Li killed Song Ning. This, Lin Yuan and Qing Chan hesitated. Their lips trembled, but they didn't know how to refuse. In this situation, they would die no matter how much they refused. However, to stop a corpse demon? Young master, you think too highly of us, don't you think? If you hesitate any longer, you will all die. Ling Xiao shouted. He raised his head and looked at the place where the corpse devil was wreaking havoc. In the next instant, divine light suddenly bloomed around him, and he actually took the initiative to pounce on the corpse devil. Young master, Li Zichu and the others focused their eyes. The respect they had for Ling Xiao deepened. How righteous was this to make this young man, who was born to stand at the peak of the Azure Sky realm, willingly to die. With Master Ling Xiao's strength, he wouldn't have been stopped by Song Ning if he didn't care about them. The people present were all geniuses from various places. They had gone through countless dangers to achieve what they had today. They had seen countless dark paths and unfathomable people's hearts. Only recently, they had a sudden realization. It turned out that the legends of the ancient emperors sealing the sky with their blood and killing immortals to protect the peace of the human race were not far off. It turned out that there was someone in the human race who was on par with the ancient emperors and human emperors. Lord Ling Xiao, you are the clear fog of the nine heavens, the spiritual mist of the immortal world. Clear my turbid eyes and cleanse my filthy heart. Buzz! Gu Chaoxiai's face was cold. There was no trace of panic. Although she didn't know that everything in front of her was set up by Ling Xiao, it might be a relief if she really died with him today. At least, she wouldn't have to guess his thoughts all day long. Kill! Lin Yuan and Guyu both took a deep breath. Divine light bloomed around their bodies, and they immediately chased after Ling Xiao and pounced on the sovereign demonic corpse. Kill! Seeing this scene, The crowd that was originally fleeing in fear finally stopped in their tracks. Looking at the black-clothed figure that was blocking the sovereign demonic corpse, their eyes were filled with tears. Kill! A low and sonorous roar suddenly rang out one after another. Countless geniuses of the ancient clans were surrounded by spiritual light. Like moths to a flame, they flew toward the corpse demon angrily. Feeling the waves of energy coming from behind him, Ling Xiao smiled and slashed with the ancient sword in his hand. The sound of the sword suddenly resounded. Countless strange phenomena rose and evolved in the sword light. However, the moment Ling Xiao's sword fell, it was blocked by the corpse demon ancestor Ye's saber. The corpse demon ancestor Yi instantly vomited blood and flew dozens of feet away. Boom! At the same time, the countless heaven's favorites who were rushing over were stunned. Then, they saw a black light shoot across the sky and reap their lives. Chapter 1034. No! Lin Yuan and Gu Yu were the first to bear the brunt of the attack. When they saw the black light piercing through the void and slashing toward them, their faces instantly turned pale. Both of them were only in the venerable realm. How could they withstand the full-powered slash of a heavenly supreme corpse puppet? In the blink of an eye, the ancient sword in Lin Yuan's hand shattered. Even his body was split into two when the black light fell. Behind Gu Yu, a hand suddenly reached out and pulled him to the side. However, the black light hit his chest, and he fell to the ground in a sorry state. Young Master Ling Xiao. Gu Yu was in a daze. He lowered his head and looked at Ling Xiao at his feet and the open wound on his chest. His eyes trembled and tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. Young Master, if I don't die today, I will repay you in the future. Young Master! Countless cries of surprise instantly rang out, but Ling Xiao only struggled to stand up from the ground with a serious expression and took a deep breath. Since it was a setup, there must be witnesses. In fact, it made no difference to Ling Xiao whether Lin Yuan or Gu Yu died. However, the longevity Lin family behind Lin Yuan was more powerful than the ancient Qilin dynasty that Gu Yu belonged to. It would be difficult to control them. Although the ancient Qilin dynasty was one of the four great dynasties, it was not as powerful as the Shenwu dynasty. It was said that the four great dynasties had totems enshrined to protect their treasures. They did not fight for the world and were independent. Perhaps Gu Yu would be an opportunity. A person who was blessed with providence and was deeply grateful to him would always bring him a different kind of surprise, right? It's okay. Ling Xiao shook his head. The celestial light around him covered the wound on his chest, but the blood stain at the corner of his mouth was particularly eye-catching. We can't go on like this. Young Master, you should go. You can't die. You can't die for us. It's not worth it. Gu Yu's eyes were brimming with tears as he spoke with sincerity. At this moment, he no longer cared about life and death. As long as the young master could live, even if everyone died, it would not be a loss to the human race. Now that things have come to this, we can only have someone die to stop that demonic corpse for a moment. Ling Xiao turned his head and looked toward the corner of the ancient hall, only to see Gu Chaoxiai, Li Jichu, and the others already engaged in battle with Song Ning. Although the Wolf King's defeat was obvious, Gu Chaoxiai and the others were also worried. They were afraid that the demonic corpse would suddenly descend, so they didn't dare to use their full strength. Gu Chaoxiai, you dare to kill me? Ancestor, come and help me. Song Ning roared angrily towards the sky. Gu Chaoxiai and the other girls' expressions changed, especially when they heard the sound of rushing wind coming from behind them. They didn't dare to hesitate and ran away. Whoosh! However, just as Song Ning's expression was ferocious and he was about to laugh wildly, he saw a gentle smile on the black figure's face. Ling Xiao. Song Ning's eyes trembled as he felt a chill rising from the bottom of his feet. It was too late for him to dodge. In other words, with his strength, he had no chance of escaping in front of Ling Xiao. A ray of sword light slashed down from the sky, breaking through the fog and enveloping Song Ning's figure. Ancestor, save me. Song Ning gritted his teeth and forced himself to calm down. The blood moon above his head soared and collided with the sword light. Following that, an unexpected scene occurred. The moment the sword radiance with unparalleled killing intent came into contact with the blood moon, it suddenly dissipated. Ling Zhao's face was filled with hatred. Song Ning, let's see how many of my attacks you can take. How many of your attacks? Song Ning was confused. In my opinion, I can't even take one attack. What the hell is going on? Puffed. Just as Ling Xiao was about to strike again with his ancient sword, blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. No, not far away. Ancestor Ye's corpse puppet opened and closed, harvesting the few remaining ancient clan prodigies. He's injured. Song Ning came to a sudden understanding, and a ferocious light flashed in his eyes. But right when he took a step forward with the intention of seizing this opportunity to annihilate Ling Xiao, he saw the young man suddenly turn around and glance at the few smelly fish and shrimps that remained in the hall, and a wisp of an obscure smile suddenly bloomed on the corners of his mouth. What the F*** CK? Was he smiling just now? Song Ning's footsteps suddenly stopped. For some reason, he felt that there was an indescribable evil in Ling Zhao's body. It was as if he was deliberately waiting for everyone to be slaughtered. Buzz. Just as Song Ning was pondering, he heard the sound of a sword in the distant void again. A ray of clear light bloomed leisurely, and a shocking sword intent spread out, carrying with it the power to destroy an era. Suddenly, the world turned upside down, and rays of light spewed out. Song Ning's lips trembled slightly. At this moment, he seemed to see a sea of blood rolling in front of him, and a mountain of corpses and bones. The blood moon hanging above his head was almost instantly shattered, unable to stop the sword light at all. How could it be? Ancestor! Ancestor! Song Ning's heart trembled, but at this moment he saw a hint of mockery flash in Ling Zhao's eyes. Puff! The sword light fell and pierced through Song Ning's body, completely destroying his divine soul. However, the heavenly wolf young master still couldn't figure out why the ancestor's corpse, which had been obedient to him just a moment ago, had suddenly lost its connection with him. Buzz! The golden light above the ancient hall was destroyed. Ling Zhao's figure reappeared in front of the corpse demon and shouted, "Go! Young master! Young master, don't worry about me. Go!" Boom! At the same time, in the center of the secret realm, Ghost Shadow looked up at the ancient hall not far away, his face expressionless. Then, the demonic light around him fluctuated, and he gathered all of his spiritual energy in his hands and struck toward the depths of the ground. Boom! 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 The earth shattered, and the void collapsed. Under the all-out attack of an 8th-grade earthly sovereign, the secret realm, which had existed for countless years, finally began to collapse and be destroyed. Oh no, this secret realm is going to collapse. Someone in the ancient hall suddenly exclaimed, looking up at the collapsed ancient hall and the spatial cracks in the void. His eyes narrowed fiercely. Go! Ling Xiao turned his head and glared at Gu Chao Xiai, Yi Qing Chan, and the others. Take them out of here. Young master. Yi Qing Chan pretended to be sad, but there was no trace of panic in her eyes. From the moment Ancestor Ye's corpse puppet appeared, she knew that all of this was Ling Zhao's plan. With young master's scheming means, how could he put himself in danger? Only Gu Chao Xiai seemed to be hesitating, but when she saw the coldness in Ling Zhao's eyes, she did not dare to disobey. She snorted and flew into the distance. Young master! Li Zichu and Xianyuan Weiyang's faces were filled with worry and reluctance. Their lips trembled slightly, but they did not dare to stay. They knew that with their strength, they would only be a burden to young master if they stayed. Only by leaving could young master be free of worries. Young master, take care. Guyu gritted her teeth and led the remaining ancient clan disciples out of the area. However, at this moment, the cultivation of the youths who were still alive was at the 1st grade honorable realm, and some were even at the Emperor God realm. Those who were powerful and talented had all died at the hands of the demonic corpse puppet. Was this fate? Chapter 1035. Boom, boom. The secret realm rumbled continuously. Layers of space ripples appeared in the sky and swept toward the entrance with an unstoppable force. Wherever the ripples passed, the barren mountains collapsed and the ancient trees turned into ashes. Even the demonic beasts that were corroded by the corpse aura were crushed into pieces the moment they came into contact with the cracks in the void. Several figures rushed out of the ancient hall and headed towards the entrance in a frenzy. When there was no more aura fluctuation in the hall, Ling Xiao looked coldly at a certain spot in the void, and the corners of his mouth curled into a playful smile. When Yizu's corpse puppet waved the demonic blade of samsara, the demonic aura had already enveloped the entire space and infected everyone. No matter who was hiding in the void, Ling Xiao would be able to find them. Right now, there were only a few sky prides of the ancient race who were still alive. This game of chess had come to an end. What he needed to do was to properly kill Yizu's corpse puppet. Then, everything would come to an end. With that thought, Ling Xiao waved his hand and collected the chinquin bags of the various prodigies from the countless corpses scattered on the ground. Then, he walked out of the hall with Yizu. At that moment, the cracks in the void above his head had already covered half of the secret realm. However, the speed at which it was shattering was extremely slow. In other words, with Ling Xiao's speed, it would not take much effort to shake it off. It's time to end this. A smile appeared on Ling Xiao's face. Next, he only needed to wait for the Daotian Academy to open. Then, he could set up a new game of chess and capture the remains of the Sky Demon. In fact, even the heavenly abode of Samsara would not be able to escape from Ling Xiao now. Everything was under control. An ear-piercing, buzzing sound suddenly resounded. Ling Xiao's figure suddenly soared into the sky, and the wind swirled around him at an extremely fast speed. Even so, the corpse puppet of the Foliaceae family still followed closely behind and was not shaken off by Ling Xiao at all. Look, it's Master Ling Xiao. At the entrance, many sky prides stopped in their tracks and turned to look at the two figures in the sky. At the end of the day, they were already out of danger, and the speed at which the mystic realm was collapsing was extremely slow. As long as they wanted to leave, they could step out of the secret realm at any time. However, at this moment, when they saw the direction Ling Xiao had fled in, everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. Why is Master Ling Xiao rushing towards the spatial rift? Could it be I know? Young Master is planning to use the spatial rift to completely kill that demonic corpse. Some Heaven's favorites exclaimed, their eyes full of shock. The faces of Gu Chaoxiai, Li Jichu, and Xianyuan Weiyang suddenly turned pale. Gu Chaoxiai, in particular, clenched her jade-like hands tightly. In the end, she suddenly soared into the sky and chased after Ling Xiao. Seeing this scene, Yi Qingchan's eyes narrowed slightly, but she did not stop him. In the depths of her eyes, there seemed to be a flicker of light, and the corners of her mouth curled up into a faint smile. Boom, boom! The rumbling sounds came from afar, and Ling Xiao's figure rushed towards the crack in an unhesitant manner. This scene caused the expressions of all the sky prides to darken, especially the beautiful figure in red who was following closely behind. It was inexplicably tragic. Some people began to cry out until they knelt on the ground and wailed. How righteous and righteous must one be to make an ancient clan young master disregard his life like this? How loyal must one be to be able to go to the Yellow Springs with one's lover without any regrets? Master Ling Xiao, praising the Empress, your deeds should be passed down for generations to come. It was you who made me believe that there was something even more precious than deception and selfishness on this path of cultivation. That was love, determination, poignant beauty. Even if the heavens and earth collapse, I will not leave. Boom! In the end, Ling Xiao's figure appeared at the edge of the crack in the void. With his speed, he would soon be engulfed by the turbulence and die. Ling Xiao. At this moment, A clear cry of sorrow suddenly sounded from the distant blue sky. Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at the beautiful figure in red who was rushing over with a miserable expression. The corners of his mouth immediately curled up into a smile. Ling Xiao. No. Gu Chaoxiai's eyes were filled with tears. At this moment, she suddenly felt a little regretful. Why? Why did she only feel such heartache and despair when she lost him? However, in the end, before she could get close, Ling Xiao's figure had already rushed straight towards the crack. No! Gu Chaoxiai's beautiful face was pale. The original coldness had already dissipated and was replaced by a kind of sadness that came from the depths of her bones. At this moment, she realized that she actually did not even have the courage to watch him disappear. Her figure slowly fell and landed on the mountain peak. Then, she slowly squatted down, hugged her knees with both hands, and sobbed softly. At this moment, in the distant sky, Ling Xiao's figure suddenly stopped and stood at the edge of the crack. Behind him, Ancestor Ye's corpse suddenly rushed over. As if it could not react in time, it plunged into the endless darkness. Ling Xiao's eyes focused slightly. Soul light flickered, and he instantly kept Ancestor Ye's corpse into his realm. When this scene fell into the eyes of everyone, the despair and pain on their faces suddenly froze. Looking from afar, it was Lord Ling Xiao who stopped at the edge of the cliff and cleverly tricked the demon corpse with low intelligence to rush into the spatial turbulence. Only Yi Qingchan's smile grew wider and wider. She looked at Ling Xiao with eyes full of pride. See, this is the young master I love. He plans with every conceivable possibility and controls the common people. The people of the world are stupid and only fit to be the young master's chess pieces. If I tell you to die, the heavens will not forgive me. If I tell you to live, the yellow springs will not let you go. Young master, you are wise. Young master, smart. Hearing the exclamations from the entrance, Gu Chaoxiai's beautiful face was slightly stunned. She slowly raised her head, only to see a figure standing in front of her. It was a gentle and brilliant face. It was peerless, unruly, and divine like jade. Ling Xiao, you. Gu Chaoxiai's beautiful eyes widened and her jade mouth was slightly open. Before she could stand up, the youth had already carried her by the waist and rushed towards the entrance of the secret realm. You are not dead. At this time, Gu Chaoxiai no longer cared about her usual indifference. Her heart was finally at ease. If I die, won't you be a widow? Ling Xiao smiled playfully, and Gu Chaoxiai's face suddenly flushed. You? Shameless. I knew you would not be so kind. Put me down. Put me down quickly, or I will be laughed at. Praising the Empress who is not even afraid of death is actually afraid of being laughed at? Ling Xiao shook his head and chuckled, as bright as the sun. This damn romantic drama. It could almost be written into a female novel. Just call it the Tsundere Empress. Evil husband, don't think about drugging me. At the entrance, Li Zichu and Xianyuan Weiyang looked up at the two figures who were hugging each other like an immortal couple. Their faces flashed with a touch of admiration, but in the next moment, they felt an inexplicable sense of loss in their hearts. Young master, I wonder if I will have the fortune to grow old with you in this life. Everyone, let's go. This secret realm is about to be destroyed. Ling Xiao did not land on the ground. Instead, he directly stepped out of the secret realm with Gu Chaoxiai in his arms and disappeared into the distant sky. The remaining geniuses of the ancient clans and the disciples of the immortal sects followed closely behind with excited expressions. Although they did not find anything in this secret realm, they had no complaints in their hearts this time. The fact that young master was still alive was their greatest fortune on this trip. Chapter 1036. It was a moonless night in Rockcliffe City. A lone star was hidden in the darkness, emitting wisps of cold light. At this moment, Ling Xiao was lying on a bamboo chair in the courtyard of the city. Beside him, Gu Chaoxiai was sipping her tea. Her face had returned to its usual indifference. At the same time, everything that had happened in the secret realm had been spread throughout the entire Azure continent. Countless leaders of the ancient clans and immortal sects were heartbroken. This time, thousands of heavenly talents had gathered at Rock Cliff City to enter the secret realm. They wanted to slay the demon and attain their Tao. However, they did not expect that only a few of them would walk out alive. Even the young master of the Longevity Lin family and the prince of the Holy Emperor Palace had died in the secret realm. It was said that the young master of the Ling people had a narrow escape. Of course, the story of Ling Zhao's righteous actions and his loyal love for Empress Chao Ci was even more exaggerated and spread far and wide. Suddenly, the young master of the Ling people, Ling Xiao, was in the limelight. He had become the leader of the righteous faction that was worshipped by his peers in the Azure Continent. As for the forces that were rumored to be involved with the Sky Demon, they closed their immortal sects and called back their disciples in an attempt to avoid the disaster. Even so, countless ancient clans and immortal sects began to send experts to investigate in secret. They wanted to completely destroy these human lackeys and scum of the righteous faction. The storm had arrived. The Azure Continent was in chaos. Dark clouds gathered and shrouded the world. A bloody rain was about to fall. Have you found a fortune in the ancient palace? In the courtyard, Gu Chao Ci looked calm as she glanced at Ling Xiao. Originally, she did not notice any clues. However, now that she was relaxed, she thought of many questions. Why was Cang Ning so angry? Also, that secret realm was the place where the reincarnation Heavenly Palace's experts had died. Why did she not sense any reincarnation chi? Yes. Ling Xiao nodded slightly. He waved his hand, and a white pearl appeared above his head. This is Gu Chao Ci's beautiful eyes narrowed, especially when she felt the terrifying Taoist rhyme contained within the pearl. She was inexplicably shocked. Life and death flowed, and the universe changed. This tiny bead seemed to contain all living beings in the universe and the true essence of life. This is what Cang Ning wants. Moonlight God Crystal. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. Does my wife like it? If I like it, will you give it to me? Gu Chao Ci snorted coldly. However, Ling Xiao suddenly waved his hand and sent the divine crystal to her. Since you like it, then I'll give it to you. A fey that contained vitality wasn't of much use to Ling Xiao. The true creation of this secret realm was the true Samsara dew and the corpse pearl condensed from the heavenly sovereign's blood soul. Moreover, most of the divine power contained in this divine crystal had already been consumed by the corpse pearl. So, if he could use this pearl to gain Gu Chao Ci's trust, why not? You are really giving it to me? Gu Chao Ci's expression froze. She looked at Ling Xiao with some surprise. He risked his life to obtain this creation. How could he get to her so easily? Otherwise, don't tell me you intend to spend the night with me in exchange for this pearl? Ling Xiao smiled, his eyes revealing a sinister look. Gu Chao Ci blushed and spat, shameless. She put away the divine crystal and drank her tea in silence, ignoring Ling Xiao. Now that the secret realm was broken, all the secrets were buried in the abyss. Even if someone had doubts, they wouldn't be able to find any clues. At this moment, Ling Xiao wasn't in a hurry to leave. He was just waiting for the person who had been hiding in the dark to appear. He could feel that the person's aura was always nearby. The reason why Ling Xiao didn't make a move was that he was in a good mood because he had gained a lot from this trip. The life and death of a rotten fish and shrimp was just a matter of a thought from him. Of course, even so, he couldn't walk out of Rocky Cliff Ancient City. Is Lord Ling Xiao here? A clear and gentle female voice suddenly came from outside the courtyard. Gu Chao Ci frowned slightly and didn't say anything. Ling Xiao replied in a deep voice, "Come in." Creak. The courtyard door was pushed open. The second prince of the ancient Qilin divine dynasty and Li Jichu walked in from afar. They bowed to him and Gu Chao Ci. "Young lord," praising the empress. Are the two of you planning to leave the Nihility Zone?" Ling Zhao's expression was gentle, but his face was still pale. He forced himself to sit up on the bamboo chair. He seemed to have aggravated his injuries, so he coughed lightly. "Young lord," Li Jichu's pretty face froze. She was about to step forward and help him up when she saw Gu Chaoxiai's cold eyes. She froze on the spot, and a bitter smile appeared on her face. Young lord, we plan to return to the clan today. This time, thank you so much for saving our lives. Guyu will remember this for the rest of his life. If you have any instructions for us in the future, just say the word, and I will do anything for you. Guyu took a deep breath and bowed deeply to Ling Xiao. The four great god dynasties were the Black Tortoise Dynasty, the Ancient Qilin Dynasty, the Golden Crow Dynasty, and the Flame Dragon Dynasty. These four dynasties were different from ordinary ancient dynasties and immortal dynasties. It was said that their inheritances came from the ancient immortal realms. The bloodlines of the four dynasties originated from the four great divine beasts. They were extremely terrifying. Of course, rumors were just rumors. Although the four dynasties had a deep foundation, they had never truly dominated a region. Therefore, in the eyes of many forces, the four dynasties were far less intimidating than the Shenwu dynasty founded by the human martial emperors. However, the reason why the four dynasties have been passed down for 100,000 years was because there was a secret in the four dynasties. It was the taboo of the azure sky. Brother Gu, you are treating me as an outsider. I'm just doing what a righteous human should do. Ling Xiao shook his head and sighed helplessly. It's a pity that with my strength alone, I'm still weak and insignificant in front of the heavenly demon's vassals. Cough, cough. I can't protect everyone. Hearing this, Gu Chaoxiai's lips curled into a smile. She did not know why, but when she saw Ling Xiao pretending to be innocent and loyal, she no longer felt annoyed. Instead, she felt that it was interesting. Ling Xiao, you think you have fooled the common people and that your plan is flawless. But I just quietly watched you pretend to be pretentious and smile without saying anything. At this moment, Li Zichu and Guyu shook their heads fiercely. Their faces were filled with respect. Young master, please don't say that. In the entire azure sky, who is as righteous as you? Young master, please rest assured and recuperate. I believe that after this incident, Qin Shun will definitely restrain himself. I will take this opportunity to return to the academy and report to the four headmasters. We will unite the ancient sects and pull out his wings. In that case, I will have to trouble senior sister Li. Ling Xiao nodded slightly. Li Zichu and Guyu glanced at Gu Chaoxiai. Then, they said in a deep voice, then we will not disturb young master and the empress. Goodbye. Senior sister Li. Just as Li Zichu turned around and was about to leave, Ling Xiao suddenly called out to the first disciple of the Confucian institution. Young master? Li Zichu's bright eyes trembled slightly. She suddenly had some expectations in her heart. I heard that in a few days, Academy Master Dao Tian will appear and give a lecture. I hope that senior sister Li will recommend me. Ling Xiao smiled gently. Li Zichu's beautiful face immediately bloomed with a brilliant smile. Young master is coming too? Great. Don't worry, young master. When young master comes to the Dao Tian Academy, I will personally entertain young master. Thank you, senior sister Li. Chapter 1037. Li Zichu is interested in you. Gu Chaoxiai looked up at Li Zichu's back and asked calmly, are you jealous? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. Then his face darkened. Gu Chaoxiai, why don't you believe me? From the first time he met Gu Chaoxiai, he felt that she was very wary of him. But Ling Xiao did not reveal any flaws, whether it was in Shenzhou or now in Qingsong. Then what was she worried about? I don't doubt you. Gu Chaoxiai's eyes trembled. She was a little flustered. Even the coldness on her face had dissipated. He was the sky demon, but she did not dare to say it. She was afraid that if she revealed this secret, everything would be different. Buzz. At this moment, a buzzing sound came from the sky again. Ling Xiao frowned. Murderous intent could be seen in his eyes. Who dared to be so presumptuous in front of him? A golden figure descended from the sky and landed in front of Ling Xiao and Gu Chaoxiai. Jin Han Princess Royal of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, greets Master Ling Xiao. The girl was beautiful. Her golden hair fluttered in the wind. Her feather robe was spotless. Her graceful figure and her snow-white, jade-like skin seemed to flicker with fluorescence, looking so delicate that it could be broken with a single blow. Her figure was perfect. Although she was not as tall as Gu Chaoxiai, she was curvaceous. Her long and slender legs, which were exposed under her feather robe, were unique. Her facial features were defined, and her eyes were deep. She had the charm of a foreign woman. At this moment, although she was bowing to Ling Xiao, there was not much respect in her words. In fact, she did not even look at Gu Chaoxiai. She only looked at Ling Xiao indifferently. Her thin lips were pursed. She seemed to be hesitating. Jinhana. Ling Xiao frowned slightly, but there was no change in his expression. 8,000 Providence points, Golden Crow Spirit Body, Metal, Fire, and Wind Dao Laws, 6th grade Exalt Realm. It turned out that the person who had been hiding in the dark was actually a person of destiny. He had heard about the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. However, the Mystery Land had already ended. What was the meaning of the Princess Royal's sudden appearance? Delivery man? I hope young master doesn't blame me for disturbing you. Jin Han, Er's golden eyes were indifferent. Even in front of Ling Xiao, she didn't show much cowardice. It was clear that this was an extremely proud woman. In other words, although the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty could not be compared to the Shenwu Dynasty, it was on par with the Immortal Phoenix Ancient Dynasty. Therefore, Jin Han did not seem to care about Gu Chaoxiai at all. Scram before I get angry. Ling Xiao walked to Gu Chaoxiai's side and sat in front of the stone table. He picked up a cup of tea and took a sip. Seeing this, Gu Chaoxiai's lips curled into a smile. Jin Han, on the other hand, frowned slightly and bowed again. Praising the Empress. I have long heard of young master's righteousness. Today, Jin Han, has disturbed you because I have a request. If it's convenient for young master, it's not convenient. Before Jin Han, could finish, Ling Xiao shook his head. You. Jin Han, gritted her teeth. Strange golden patterns suddenly appeared on her face and neck. However, in the blink of an eye, she forcefully suppressed it. Young master, as long as you agree to my request, I am willing to pay any price. Any price. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows, and the smile on his face became more playful. To be able to make the proud Princess Royal of the Divine Dynasty act so submissively, it seemed that this dynasty was in real trouble. If so, would there be a chance to completely control this dynasty? That's right, young master. The fortune in the Supreme Secret Area should be in your hands, right? I hope young master can give the true due to me. I am willing to serve young master for 3 days. Jin Han, Er's face suddenly turned red. She could not hide the embarrassment in her eyes. She was the Grand Princess of the Divine Dynasty, but now she was humiliating herself like this. Once this matter spread out, she, Jin Han, would be despised by everyone. But what can I do? She was determined to get that drop of true reincarnation due. Otherwise, the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty would be doomed eternally. However, even Jin Han did not expect that Ling Xiao did not get the true reincarnation due from the ancient palace on the mountain peak. Instead, he got the Moonlight Divine Crystal and the Corpse Pearl. However, this drop of true due was in Ling Xiao's hands. But why should she give it to him? She had to pretend to be noble when she was asking for help. True reincarnation due? Gu Chaoxiai's eyes turned cold. She frowned at Ling Xiao and snorted. No wonder this bastard gave her the Moonlight Divine Crystal. He had already gotten the real treasure in this secret area. Although Gu Chaoxiai did not know what kind of treasure the true reincarnation due was, it must be a treasure that could make the princess of the Divine Dynasty behave like this. Do I look so desperate? Or do you think you are more beautiful than my wife? Ling Xiao reached out and pulled Gu Chaoxiai into his arms and sat her on his lap. Surprisingly, Gu Chaoxiai did not resist this time. Instead, a cold look appeared on her face. What? Jin Han, was clearly taken aback. She had never expected that Ling Xiao would actually reject her. Although the true reincarnation Du was extremely precious, it was not irreplaceable to the Taigu Ling people. She was the most beautiful woman in the 4 divine dynasties. The number of men who wanted to marry her could line up from the Buddha's Sea to the Ghost Domain. But he rejected her? She was so humble and shameless. How could Ling Xiao treat her with such disdain? I do have the true reincarnation Du, and it is of no use to me. But why should I give it to you? Get out of here before I get angry. Ling Zhao's indifferent words made Jin Han, Er's face darken completely. Only by playing hard to get could one let go of their bottom line. What Jin Han did just now might have crossed the bottom line, but it was not enough. It was far from enough. In Ling Zhao's eyes, Jin Han was a leak, but the divine dynasty behind her was an even greater treasure. Besides, Ling Xiao had great use for the true reincarnation Du. He would not give it away so easily. Young master, Jin Han, Er's voice was mournful. Her eyes were filled with tears. Ordinary spiritual treasures were not tempting to Ling Xiao. She thought that if she gave herself to the young master, he would be happy for 3 days. But she did not expect that the most precious thing in Jin Han Er's eyes could not tempt Ling Xiao at all. At this moment, Jin Han felt extremely helpless and hopeless. If it was someone else, she would not have done this. Even if it was the heir of the everlasting family, she could have killed him and taken him by force. But facing Ling Xiao, she did not have the slightest bit of confidence. Whether it was strength or background, she could not defeat the young master of the Ling people. Get out of here, or die. Ling Xiao's body was suddenly surrounded by sword intent. Time froze, space froze, and thousands of divine statues surged and appeared. Jin Han, who did not dare to say anything. She gritted her teeth and left. Chapter 1038. Jin Han is the most beautiful woman in the divine dynasty. Even if she were to be a maid for 1 day, she would be able to shake the Azure continent, let alone 3 days. How could you refuse her? Gu Chao Ci broke free from Ling Zhao's embrace and sat down in front of the table again with an indifferent expression. Oh, then should I ask her to come back now? Ling Xiao smiled, but Gu Chao Ci stood up and glared at him. Ling Xiao, there are less than 3 months before the Lord of Daotian Manor's lecture. At that time, many geniuses from the Azure continent will be there, and a divine object in the Daotian Academy will be opened. Maybe you can get some good fortune from it. As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Chaosai stepped into the air, and the shadow of a phoenix appeared under her, and she flew into the distance. Oh, by the way, I found a part of the sword you gave me before. The remaining part is rumored to be in the Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb. Shouldn't you have a begging attitude if you're begging me? Ling Zhao's eyes were cold, and he shook his head with a smile, but he did not ask her to stay. After all, Gu Chao Ci was the lord of the divine dynasty and the true phoenix of the 9 heavens. Furthermore, if she were to stay by Ling Zhao's side all day long, how would she be targeted in secret? The Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb? As for Jin Han, from her attitude just now, Ling Xiao could feel that this princess of the divine dynasty was determined to get the reincarnation due. Therefore, she would not give up so easily. And this time was enough for Ling Xiao to find out a lot of information and know how to completely control her. There was already a demonic mark on her body. Although the Azure continent was big, it could not escape from Ling Xiao's control. Ghost Shadow, my lord. Spirit Shadow's figure descended from the sky and bowed to Ling Xiao. From today onwards, you will stay by Gu Chao Ci's side. Remember, no matter what danger she encounters, you are not to help. Report to me. Yes. Ghost Shadow didn't hesitate and turned to disappear. Now that Ling Xiao had a heavenly sovereign corpse puppet in his hands, there weren't many people in Qingsong who could truly threaten him. Since Gu Chao Ci was the flaw that Ling Xiao pushed to the front, she would most likely be targeted even more. With Gu Ying hiding behind him, He could always pay attention to those who had evil intentions and secretly eliminate them. Gu Chaoxiai's luck was indeed heaven-defying. Usually, there would not be any unforeseen events. However, who knew if the Realm Master hiding in the dark had any luck, or if he had already seen through the great Tao and was no longer shackled by the heavenly Tao? In this way, with Ghastly Shadow's protection, there was an additional layer of protection. Dai Shadow, send some secret guards to keep an eye on the World Lord Palace and the Sure family. Go and find out what this Jin Han wants the reincarnation do for. Yes, my lord. A ripple appeared in the void, and Ling Zhao's figure also disappeared on the spot. Realm, Heavenly Palace. Yi Qingchan, Su Yin, Lin Ming, and Phoenix Rouge sat in front of the table, drinking tea and burning incense. It was a harmonious scene. Ever since young master ascended to the upper bound, he has paid less attention to us. Phoenix Rouge snorted coldly. Naturally, she had heard about what Ling Xiao had done recently, especially the Empress Gu that Lin Ming and Yi Qingchan had mentioned. She felt an inexplicable sense of danger. With praising the Empress here, young master naturally has no time to care about us. Yi Qingchan's eyes were clear, and there seemed to be a dim light flickering in them. Lin Ming and Su Yin only smiled and did not dare to say anything. It was already good fortune for them to be able to follow young master. What was there to complain about? What are you guys talking about? Just as the girls were pondering in their hearts and were all silent, there was a sudden chuckle from the void. A black-robed figure descended from the sky and landed in front of the palace. His eyes were full of playfulness. Young master. The four girls stood up and bowed to Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao pulled Phoenix Rouge into his arms and sat in her original seat. Where's Bai Ling? Sister Ling only has eyes for young master and cultivation now. Yi Qingchan shook her head and chuckled, but there was a hint of surprise in her eyes. Praising the Empress left? Yes. Ling Xiao nodded slightly, and his gaze fell on Su Yin. Since the incident in the lower bound, the Lady of Destiny's temperament had obviously become much more downcast. It seemed that he should find something for her to do. Young master, I need to go back to the Foliaceae. The day before yesterday, the elders sent a message that they're going to hold a ceremony to officially elect me as the leader of the Foliaceae and inherit the ancestral Foliaceae. Yi Qingchan's pretty face was disappointed as she sighed softly. Yes, there are 3 more months until the day of the Lord of Daotian Manor's lecture. Let's meet at the Daotian Academy then. Okay, let's go. Follow me to the medicine hall to take a look. Ling Xiao stood up and walked towards the depths of the realm with Phoenix Rouge in his arms. However, when he passed by Xiong Huan's place of seclusion, his mind suddenly stirred and he descended from the sky. My lord, as if sensing Ling Xiao's aura, Xiong Huan's figure suddenly stepped out of the mountain and stood in front of Ling Xiao. Xiong Huan, try this corpse pearl and see if it can help you. Ling Xiao waved his hand and handed the corpse pearl, condensed from the blood soul of a heavenly supreme, to Xiong Huan. However, the latter's face turned solemn, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. My lord, this pearl is condensed from the blood soul of a heavenly supreme. It contains an extremely terrifying vitality. If you use this to replace the ghost pearl, it may be able to regenerate your physical body. Ling Xiao pondered for a moment and sighed softly. Although the soul-sucking ghost pearl was the most precious treasure of the ghost clan, Xiong Huan could only maintain its power through endless slaughter. However, this sovereign corpse pearl was different. Not only did it contain the supreme vitality of the moonlight divine crystal, but it also contained the blood soul of a heavenly supreme. Although it was not very useful to Ling Xiao, it was a supreme treasure for someone like Xiong Huan, who had no vitality and no soul. Thank you, my lord. Xiong Huan's eyes trembled slightly. Suddenly, a bloody radiance bloomed between his eyebrows, and the soul-sucking ghost pearl appeared and sucked the corpse pearl into his soul sea. Boom! In an instant, demonic power surged around the demon general and turned into a demonic shadow that stood tall in the sky. The sky darkened, and layers of thunderclouds gathered. Xiong Huan's cultivation level had entered the Saint realm in an instant. More importantly, there was an extremely weak vitality in his body at this moment. It is indeed useful. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently and put away the soul-sucking ghost pearl. If he guessed correctly, Xiao Jiming's background was very likely related to the godly slaying temple that Xiachen belonged to, although this temple was not the top in the Azure continent. According to Ling Xiao's knowledge, no one in the entire Azure continent knew where it was located. Such a mysterious sect must have its secrets. If it could be controlled by Ling Xiao, it would be a great help to him in many of his subsequent plans. Don't worry and recover your cultivation here, Ling Xiao said indifferently and walked toward the medicine hall again. The reincarnation dew. The moment he knew the use of this item, he had a bold idea in his mind. The Fusang battle armor was a divine item of the 9 heavens and a natural spirit. Back then, Han Zhan could use the immortal tablet to recover a trace of vitality. Perhaps this drop of divine dew could awaken its immortal charm. If he could really have a primordial heavenly tree in this realm, it would be a supreme fortune for everyone. The original intent of the primordial heavenly Tao. Children of destiny, are you tempted? Follow me, and you don't have to go through trials and tribulations. I am where the fortune lies. You only have to work hard to cultivate and reach the top of the world. Then, you will be the blade in my hand and kill all the enemies in the world. No matter how strong the villain is, he is only one person. But I have thousands of destinies. Let me ask the immortals in the heavens. Can they conquer the 9 heavens? Chapter 1039. Buzz. Ling Xiao, Phoenix Rouge, and the other 2 ladies descended from the sky, instantly attracting the attention of everyone in the medicine hall. Alchemy Emperor Shur had already gone into seclusion to study the method of refining the 9th grade sacred breakthrough pill. All matters in the medicine hall were under the control of Han Zhan. My lord, Han Zhan, who was wearing a black robe with blood clouds, bowed to Ling Xiao. At this moment, his face was inexplicably pale. It was obvious that he had spent a lot of energy in the past few days. How's the ancient Fu Sang tree? Ling Xiao nodded slightly. Han Zhan immediately showed a proud expression. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Oh, with my continuous efforts, the ancient Fu Sang tree has taken root in the ground. However, I'm afraid it will take a long time to restore the divine power of the tree. Han Zhan sighed softly. His celestial tablet was indeed a treasure of heaven and earth. It had the magical power to catalyze all spiritual materials. However, no matter what kind of treasure it was, there was a limit to its power. The ancient Fu Sang tree was the ancestor of wood in the 9 heavens. The process of restoring its divine power would be extremely long and complicated. For me to have a look, Ling Xiao was not surprised at all. He lifted his feet and followed Han Zhan to the peak of an ancient mountain behind the medicine hall. At the peak of the mountain, the ancient Fu Sang tree still looked like an armor, but its bottom was already in the ground. It stood there quietly, as if it had sensed Ling Xiao's aura. An extremely weak fluctuation came from the ancient tree. In fact, if Ling Xiao's divine soul was not strong and he had a 9 heavens treasure like the ancestral symbol in his soul sea, he would not have sensed the faint joy. It's effective. A smile appeared on Ling Xiao's face. No matter how complicated the restoration process of the ancient Fu Sang tree was, as long as it could restore its vitality, it would be a great fortune for Ling Xiao. It should be known that the origin Taoist rhyme contained in such a connate spiritual object was not something that elixirs or spiritual treasures could compare to. I wonder if this reincarnation dew can help it restore a trace of intelligence. Ling Xiao waved his hand and held the drop of reincarnation dew he obtained from the secret realm in his palm. Buzz, a wave of spiritual power fluctuation that was visible to the naked eye instantly spread out, covering thousands of miles of the sky. Above the true dew, there were also countless strange phenomena taking place. Divine palaces were destroyed, and all living beings were revived. A heavenly palace towered above the sky, releasing dazzling divine radiance. As for Yi Qing-chan, Feng Rouge, and the others, their eyes almost instantly became dull. At this time, they seemed to see countless fragmented and strange scenes in this drop of true dew, but these scenes were not what they had personally experienced. Lord, what is this? Reincarnation. Reincarnation, reincarnation. The universe's reincarnation. True samsara dew. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Although he did not know the origin of this item, it could be hidden by a heavenly sovereign before his death and used as a golden finger for the rise of a son of destiny. Furthermore, Ling Xiao guessed that the ancestor of the Heavenly Wolf clan had died in the secret realm because he coveted this treasure. The heavenly sovereigns of the ancient era were not comparable to the current sovereigns. Therefore, even though Jean Han was beautiful, she was not worth mentioning compared to such a divine object. Lord, are you thinking of if this dew can help Fu Sang awaken a trace of intelligence? Its recovery will be much faster in the future. Ling Xiao lifted his foot and walked in front of the divine tree. Clear light blossomed in his eyes as he dripped the drop of true reincarnation dew onto its chest. That was right. This drop of divine dew was very mysterious. However, its function was to help the remnant soul recover. Ling Xiao had the body of the sky demon, but his godly soul was transmigrated. Therefore, this drop of divine dew was of no use to him. As for Bai Ling, once she regained her memories, who knew what would happen? Even if this girl did not betray her, Ling Xiao would have to put in more effort to do something to the reincarnation divine palace. The Fu Sang tree was different. It could only passively absorb the power of the deity tablet and slowly grow. However, once it awakened a trace of intelligence, it could take the initiative to devour spirit chi to cultivate. The two states were completely different. Buzz! A buzzing sound rang out. Seven-colored light started to rise between heaven and earth. Above the Fu Sang tree, thousands of rays of golden light formed layers of Tao patterns. Sometimes they turned into images of deities and Buddhas. Sometimes they turned into a vast sea of stars. A beam of deity light shot up into the sky and pierced through the sky. Suddenly, the entire realm fell into endless darkness. Layers of thunderclouds fell from the sky. Tribulation, lightning zigzagged within. It was a shocking sight. The thousands of celestial shadows quietly shattered, and Ling Xiao and the others seemed to hear a shrill cry of despair resounding in their ears. At this moment, they seemed to see a scene gradually unfold before them. It was a graceful figure in a gray robe. She looked otherworldly. Her long hair fell to her ankles and shone with deity intent. Even though it was just her back, it still made Phoenix Rouge and the others feel ashamed. Only Yi Qing-chan frowned slightly and seemed to be thinking about something. At this moment, there were countless overlords in golden armor standing in front of the woman in gray. If Ling Xiao guessed correctly, these people should be from the deities. In the next moment, there was a burst of light in the sky, and the woman's body was instantly swallowed. Boom! The tribulation lightning smashed down and tore apart the realm space. Ling Xiao frowned slightly and suddenly rose into the air. Layers of demonic intent rose around him. He slashed down with the demonic blade in his hand, imprisoning the universe and destroying the river of time. It contained a terrifying aura of destruction. Boom! As the demonic blade slashed down, it instantly tore apart the tribulation clouds. The boundless sea of lightning tribulation clouds abruptly shattered and dissipated. At this moment, Ling Xiao suddenly looked down at the demonic blade in surprise. A smile immediately appeared on his face. His figure descended from the sky and stood in front of the Fu Sang ancient tree. The Fu Sang ancient tree, which originally looked like a battle armor, shed some of its withered branches and turned into a straight pillar. Although there were no branches or leaves, it already looked like a tree. Looks like it's useful. Ling Xiao smiled and reached out to touch the ancient tree. Then, an inexplicable fluctuation suddenly came from his soul sea. Although it was extremely vague, Ling Xiao could feel that it was a kind of excitement and gratitude. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes, and a gentle smile finally appeared on his face. At the same time, in the ninth heaven, there was a leisurely sound of a zither like the sound of nature. A woman in a wide gray robe sat on the top of a divine mountain. Her white hands were slender as she gently played the zither. Behind her, there were many immortal palaces and thousands of miles of red light. The immortal phoenix crane soared from the blue sky, and countless powerful and terrifying auras were hidden in the depths of the palace. Suddenly, the sound of the zither stopped abruptly. The woman suddenly raised her head and looked at the end of the sky. It was a perfect immortal face that was as flawless as jade. It was sparkling and white and emitted divine light. However, what was surprising was that the woman's eyes were a dark green color. They were like a pool of deep water that made one's heart ripple for no reason. She slowly stood up and frowned slightly. There was an ancient aura that seemed to have settled down after experiencing hundreds of millions of reincarnations. It's been 190,000 years. Have you finally appeared? Chapter 1040. Han Zhan continued to use the power of the immortal tablet to irrigate this wood. Ling Xiao turned around and glanced at the pale Han Zhan. He bent down and picked up a few withered branches from the ground. See if you can refine this wood into elixirs. Given Han Zhan's strength, activating the immortal tablet day and night was extremely taxing on his body and soul. However, as a tool, as long as he did not die from exhaustion, he would continue to work. Wasn't that self-cultivation? You've worked hard. Eat more elixirs to nourish yourself. Look at how thin you are. Ling Xiao casually handed the withered branches to Han Zhan. However, he seemed to have thought of something and left the branch with the strongest vitality before walking toward the heavenly hall. Yes, my lord. Han Zhan's expression froze, and there was a hint of excitement in his eyes. Did you see that? My lord has entrusted such an important task to me. He obviously trusts and relies on me. As long as I, Han Zhan, am around, the medicinal hall will still be my medicinal hall. In the sky, Ling Xiao looked at Yi Qingchan, who was deep in thought, and raised his eyebrows. Qingchan, what's wrong? I'm fine. Young master, I keep feeling that the aura of the Fu Sang ancient tree is somewhat familiar. Yi Qingchan shook her head blankly. There was a dim light in her eyes, and she looked rather strange. Oh, familiar? Ling Xiao nodded slightly, not surprised. Now, it seemed that Yi Qingchan's cheat was just a strong Tao law. However, her providence was comparable to that of people with divine bodies and sacred bodies. It was obvious that there were other secrets about her background. As for why he left a withered branch of the Fu Sang ancient tree, it was rumored that there was another demon race's true spirit on this tree, called the Golden Crow. Now, the eldest princess of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty was in trouble. He wondered if he could use this ancient tree in exchange for the submission of a holy dynasty. Although this ordinary Yu Holy Dynasty could not possibly have the true bloodline of the Golden Crow. However, since this dynasty worshipped the Golden Crow as a god, there must be some history behind it. Now, all he needed to do was wait for the overlapping shadows to return, and he would know the predicament Jean Han was in. At that time, he would be able to think of a way to completely crush her. A day passed in the blink of an eye. Above the sky hall, Ling Xiao held the ancient reincarnation blade in his hand and seemed to have fallen into an extremely mysterious state. Boundless demonic light bloomed around his body. Devil intent transformed into clouds that enveloped the entire region. Moreover, it faintly seemed like the aura of slaughter was descending from the heavens, and it aroused terror in the hearts of all. At this moment, countless images flashed past in Ling Xiao's sea of soul. A black-clothed figure stood in the sky. Densely packed, living beings knelt on the ground beneath his feet as they cried sorrowfully at the sky. Their faces were filled with terror and despair. Among them, there were both young and old. Their spiritual might was vast and mighty, and there was no lack of supreme experts. However, in the face of the demonic shadow in the sky, they did not dare to resist at all. Traitors die. At this moment, a deep and cold voice suddenly resounded between heaven and earth. The demonic shadow gently raised the demonic blade in his hand and slashed horizontally at the hundreds of millions of living beings. The blade radiance bloomed and turned into a ray of black light. It was like a blade that could destroy the world as it slashed the bodies of all living beings into pieces. Wherever the black light passed, a bloody mist rose and dyed the blade radiance blood red. An extremely ferocious and resentful aura wriggled out, shattering the universe and destroying the region. In a breath's time, all life in this realm was extinguished. However, just as the blood-red blade radiance was about to land on the last skinny child, a gentle sigh sounded from the distant void. Then, an extreme chill spread across the sky from another direction. Wherever the chill passed, heaven and earth were sealed in ice. It was as if space and time were completely frozen at this moment. Kacha Kacha, stop it. If this goes on, you'll be doomed eternally. A woman in green with snow-white hair descended from the sky and shielded the skinny figure behind her. However, from Ling Zhao's perspective, he could only see a shocking back. Even so, he still recognized this woman. She was the one in the soul consciousness of the sky demon skull. This move is called unparalleled resentment of Tao. Thousands of miles away, the demonic shadow's lips suddenly curled into a smile. The blood-red radiance instantly pierced through the woman's figure and cut her and the child behind her into pieces. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the beautiful woman in green who fell on her back. However, the moment her face was about to appear, the image froze and shattered layer by layer. Above the heavenly palace, demonic clouds hung down, and a wisp of blood red penetrated them. It was eerie and strange. At this moment, Ling Zhao's eyes suddenly opened. A black moon rose, filled with extreme evil. At this moment, he seemed to be puzzled. The woman in green had died too easily just now, and there was not a drop of blood from her body that had been pierced by the blade radiance. Could it be that it was just an afterimage? However, why did he feel that this figure was inexplicably familiar every time he saw it? Especially the snow-white hair and the bone-chilling coldness. Ling Zhao felt a sense of deja vu Qing Chan, or Qin Wushuang. Master, just as Ling Zhao was thinking to himself, ripples suddenly appeared in the distant void. Immediately after, Folded Shadow's figure descended from the sky and bowed to him. Have you found out? Ling Zhao raised his eyebrows slightly, and his face had already regained its calmness. Yes. Master, the heavenly supreme patriarch of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty, seems to have reached the end of his life. 100 years ago, he sealed his cultivation to delay his death. However, in the recent 10 years, he has frequently appeared in front of people. Folded Shadow's face bloomed with a smile. Therefore, I guess that Jin Han, is looking for the reincarnation due to delay the patriarch's death. I see. No wonder Jin Han had been hiding in the dark. She was most likely worried that the news of the patriarch's death would be exposed and cause the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty to fall into eternal damnation. Ling Zhao's eyes revealed his thoughts. He gently clenched his fist, and the withered Fu Sang branch immediately appeared in his hand. With the divine power of this wood, even if only a tenth of it was left, it was still a rare treasure in the world, especially for a heavenly supreme who was about to die and had a relationship with the Golden Crow Holy Spirit. This piece of divine wood was even more of a great fortune. However, since it was a great fortune, Ling Zhao would not let Jin Han get it easily. He still needed to make her suffer some hardships to make her understand what kindness was. According to my investigation, the 4 great holy dynasties have heavenly sovereigns. Although the 4 great holy dynasties appear to be peaceful, they're secretly fighting each other. This is because each of the four great holy dynasties has an inheritance in their hands, and each of them is guarding it. It seems to be an extremely powerful and evil ancient treasure fragment. Back then, an elite of the celestial clan broke this treasure and sealed it in the hands of four servants. These four servants are the ancestors of the four great imperial clans today. Ancient treasure fragment, powerful and evil. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. In his memory, the four great holy dynasties were indeed guarding the treasure. They had always been united against a common enemy and attacked and retreated together. He did not expect that this was just a facade. Since it was an ancient treasure, naturally, there would be forces that coveted it. Although the four great holy dynasties did not have the foundation of the divine martial realm alone, when the four great holy dynasties joined forces, they could shake any supreme orthodoxy. However, this alliance was only under the precondition that there was an external invasion. After all, once one dynasty was destroyed, the other three dynasties would definitely be affected. However, people were greedy by nature. The four great holy dynasties might have already forgotten their duties. They only wanted to devour the other three dynasties and restore the power of the ancient treasure. Powerful and evil. Why did it make people excited? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.